Oh, noisemaker. I have to find a better way to lay here. Hello, Barry. How are you? I'm 5 minutes early. Hello, lurkers. How's everybody tonight? No. You're funny, Bobby. Hey, sis. Hey, Patricia. I'm early. Well, Don said he's going to call in a few minutes. Hi, Diana. So, I guess it's raining where he's at. Hey, Bigfoot Mama. Yeah, tonight's going to be pretty rough for Don. And so I'm praying ahead of time that he has peace with this, because I know he didn't really want to, but he's agreed to. It messed him up pretty bad. And before he comes on, I'd like to say something. Quiet. There are a couple of channels I've been watching lately that have had some pretty, let's just call it dark episodes. Things that are going on around their houses that aren't Sasquatch related. And I'd like to know if you guys would be in agreement with me in prayer, hey Pappy, to protect them, hedge of protection around them. I don't know what's going on, but they started out with Sasquatch. Now they have some, what I believe is some demonic activity. I don't know if they're associated at all. I never thought so. And it could still not be an association between the two. Hey, Sarah. How are you, sweetie? How's Shane? We need to keep those people in our prayer, though, if we would. In our prayers. It's got to be pretty scary. Of course, I anoint this house, and I pray all the time, and it doesn't mean anything if they're, I don't know. Just ignore me. Just please keep them in your prayer for safety reasons. I can't really tell you what's going on, because I've only heard a couple of them, and I wasn't happy about what I heard. They're talking about some pretty evil stuff going on. When did you quit smoking, Bobby? Thank you, Patricia. Hey, Pam. Yeah, it's not too good, Pappy. And I'm kind of wondering what's going on. If I have my suspicions, but that's all they are, is suspicions. So if I say it, what I believe is happening, I may upset a few people, and it's okay because it's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that it's so. But I believe, okay, just my opinion, I believe that the people who are going out there with those EVP machines are pulling stuff in. They're drawing, I think they're drawing the evil stuff to it. If you don't go out armed, and I'm not talking about weapons, if you don't pray before you go out armed, I think there's a lot of stuff that can happen. Oh, but I believe that there's Facebook apps, there's these, and I honestly believe that they're opening doors Whether you believe in portals or not, I mean, I know Native Americans and Indians, they have talked about portals for a long time. And if these things can draw, or I think that's giving them the power, Bobby. That's what I'm saying. And I think it has a lot to do with, it's just like playing a Ouija board. People don't think it's real until it happens. Yeah, I'm afraid for them, you know. I'm not worried about here, like I said. It'll be hellfire and brimstone if I see something evil on this property. Shane's having a miserable day. Yeah, well, I still have another week before I can afford to send your stuff, Sarah. I only get paid once a month, hun. It's my Social Security. Exactly, Patricia. That's what I'm saying. With people out there calling it in, you know, or that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm saying. Bible says there's life and death in the tongue. He also says to be careful what you do. And I think people are playing with fire. Honestly, I do. I think a lot people are playing with fire. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. Now I've said it. You can shoot the messenger if you want. There goes Tank. Oh, something's back there. There he goes. You know, there's so much stuff going on right now. And a lot of people that were deemed crazy for conspiracy theory, cows. People are looking at them a little bit differently now because some of this stuff is actually coming to pass. I think if the Lord gives you wisdom and you need to share it, if you don't share it, shame on you. I think you should. Cow squatch. These cows were going crazy last night. It sounded like there was a baby missing its mama. And I could hear the baby getting further and further away, and the mama was just screaming like crazy. And all of a sudden, mama stopped making any noise, and the baby just kept crying. Hours that baby was crying. It was just calling out, calling out, calling out. Yeah. You see that shed right there? We completely redid the inside of that shed. It took Denny and I all day. But up on top on both ends are lofts. We had to take, and they're pretty heavy, the boxes that were up there. And then we had to take everything down, go through all the boxes, rename the boxes, repack the boxes, and then put the ones up there. Yeah, drives me crazy too. I want to go out and find loft up here. It has a whole bunch of stuff. I found my boxes that has all my medical stuff in it. Okay, sweetie. Hi, Belle. Bye, Belle. Love you. God bless you. Sarah, did you hear what I said? Oh, Don's texting me. Great. Okay. So as soon as I get paid, I will send your husband the stuff that he needs. Oh yeah, Bobby. I've had a lot of really good activity here. They annoy Tank like crazy. What's fun to watch is when Tank runs all the way back there to the right, that you can see that little path going back there. He runs all the way back there, then he comes flying back and goes all the way to the left. Then he runs out front and goes all the way to the left and then comes all the way back to the right, back and forth, like there's something bouncing from place to place. Oh, there's one. No, Pappy. Hello.
Hey, D.
Hey, Don.
How am I coming in?
You sound fine to me. How's he sound to you guys?
Oh, I can hear you on my end, but I don't have the YouTube going.
No, I'm talking about the guys on the live chat.
Oh, okay.
Tell me if you can hear him. Yep, says sound great.
Good, good. I'm on my headset, so I can hear you a little better. My hearing it so good.
Oh, loud and clear,
Good
they
deal.
said. You're doing well.
Wonderful.
How are you?
Good. And had a very long day, a long weekend. We spent the last 2 days helping a church remove a bunch of fallen trees from the hurricane.
Uh-oh.
So that's done and over with, so I'm free for tomorrow after we have our first day back at church. So it's all good.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah. We're looking forward to it. It's been a long time watching church on a phone screen. It's a little old.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it does. What's doing?
Oh, good, good. We had a new birth yesterday, a little bitty one of our rescue goats, one of them that was abused real bad. She lost eyesight in one eye from the beating she took. And we took her in about 5 years ago, and she had a baby yesterday, a little old bitty thing, about the size of a newborn kitten. And he's a little firecracker. He's already running around jumping on top of the other goats if they lay down long enough for him. But they're doing well. We had a rainstorm a little while ago. That's why I was late calling in.
You're
we
fine.
got quite wet out there with them.
Yeah, you're fine. Late's it's not it's we start when you start. Don't matter.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate you waiting.
Yeah.
I was. Did you want to carry on where we was last week, or did you have something else in mind?
No, you can just carry on. It's your show. I mean, this is all you, buddy.
All right, thank you. I want to the area that I hunt, and for everybody that's been on my channel and seen the videos, our channel is either goats or it's with the big guys, Sasquatch or Bigfoot, caveman, whatever you call them. We have those in this area, and I do a lot of hikes and video recording and live streams when I have a good enough signal up there. And I hunt in the same area, and I wanted to share an encounter that I have. I had a bunch of them up there, and in that area, I haven't had any bad ones. They're all scary to me, but I haven't been to the point that I thought I was going to be killed or anything bad. It just scares me.
Yeah.
It's hard to be around something that large, and we don't know nothing about them.
Yeah.
And when there's nowhere to go, you're too far from the car to get to it, to get away, and you're stuck praying that the Lord's on your side that day, and hoping you didn't do nothing wrong enough that he's not going to stand up for you, and all kind of things run through my mind when I encounter them. But this particular encounter was fascinating. It did scare me, but it was the way the events unfolded, and for you to get a clear picture of what happened, I'm going to explain, try to explain the area, where I park and where I set up. I have a chair, and it's got a bracket on it. There's no legs on it, and it folds up, and I unfold it, and it straps around the base of a tree. And Stan, let me pull this door too. I'm inside the house this time, and our daughter's a little loud. Sorry.
You're fine. Don't apologize.
But this particular spot, there's 3 ways to get into it, and the third of those 3 ways, I'm not able to walk that distance. It's a really, really long walk. If you're hunting, you don't want to spend the prime time of the morning when the game is moving. You don't want to spend that time moving also. You want to be there when they start moving. And so the area that I park right alongside the highway because they don't allow us to drive in there. And that entire area is primitive weapons only, which is bow and arrow, crossbow if you got a disabled person's crossbow permit, or it's muzzleloader. And I hunt muzzleloader or crossbow. That's my number one go-to. And so that area suits me well. And where I park at, if I'm deer hunting, I want to be as far from where I sit as I possibly can so that all the odors that are in the vehicle, the fuel and the oil, it does affect them.
Right.
The deer that hang out by the highway, not so much, but the ones that are don't come up near the road. If you get the wrong wind and it blows across your vehicle and you're sitting in line of that odor stream, it can mess you up on your hunt. It doesn't scare the deer off, but they get on high alert.
Right.
And you're not going to hide from them when they're on high alert. They will pick you out no matter where you're at.
Right, I agree.
But this spot, when I walk in, I park the truck right at the gate, and I walk about 75 yards, and it's due north, and there's an intersection in the road. It's a logging road. They only use it when they cut the timber. And I take a left, which carries me west, and I walk about 720 to 730 yards down that road. And then I turn right, and I head north again, and it's all planted pines, mature planted pines on either side of the long road that I walk in on. And the block that I walk across is 200 yards from one side of that block to the other side, and it's just another logging road. And I sit in that block, but right on that, the next logging road up, there's two logging roads that run east to west, and I'll set up on the one furthest north. And I set to where I'm facing, I'm looking north, and so the logging road, it comes at me from the west, and it carries on past me toward the east. And as I'm facing it, there's a road that turns off directly in front of me. And so it's sort of a three-way intersection. And the deer, when they move, especially late in the evening, there's just a tremendous amount of them that come through there. And so you just don't go in there and harvest the first animal that you see. You can be selective there, and it pays off because there's so many young ones. You don't want to have an accident and take a first or second year deer. You want him to grow. And, well, I've set my chair there. I got there early. I'm thinking it was around 2 o'clock, 1:30 or 2 o'clock. And I got it set where I wanted it. I got the ground underneath it cleared so there wasn't no limbs or twigs to snap if I had to stand up to make a shot.
Right.
Well, I walked out toward the logging road, and straight across it, the third road that I was looking down, it's a horseshoe road, and it goes north around 220 to 250 yards, and then it makes a sharp right-hand curve, which it heads east, and then it's probably a 50 or 60 yard curve, and then it heads back south, and ties into that logging road that my chair's sitting on. And if you were to have a drone and looking down on it or be in a helicopter, it looks like a horseshoe. I was going to walk around that horseshoe road and do a stalk hunt. You do see a lot of game that way. And the way that I do it, take 3 baby steps, very slow. I move my legs as slow as I can move them. And on the 3rd step, I'll stop. And then I'll scan my right side and then, over to my left side. And when you're stalk hunting, you're not looking for a brown deer or a black pig. You're looking for a horizontal line. Because everything in the forest, everything grows vertically. And God designed the wildlife to where they blend in, and they could be 15 to 20 feet in front of you and you'll never see them.
Yeah.
So we're not looking for that buckskin color. I'm looking for that horizontal line. And when you find that line, if you'll focus on it, you'll start to see the animal. Then everything will come into view. If you turn your eyes off of him for a second, he's gone, and you have to search for him again. Well, that's what I would do when I stopped on my 3rd step. I would scan, and I'm looking for those horizontal lines. Well, after about an hour, I made it to the curve in the horseshoe, that 200 to 250-yard stretch. I walked it, and I got to the curve, and I wasn't quite halfway around that curve. And I made my 3rd step, and I looked, just scanned on my right side, and I scanned everything, and I turned back to the left, and then it registered. I just saw something on my right side. And what I saw was the typical Sasquatch. What you see, these computer-generated photographs, and the photographs people have called of him. He was standing up. He was close to me, probably around 40 feet. And it looked like he was behind a pine tree, and he stepped out. So I had full view of, he was facing me. So I had full view of his, his right leg and his right arm, his entire, from his head all the way down to his crotch, and then down to about almost the knee on his left leg. And I could see from the shoulder just a little ways down the arm, the bicep on his left arm. That was behind the tree still. But the time I thought I saw it, and I turned my head to the left when it registered, what I saw, I whipped my head back to the right. And if he were there, he should have still been there. And there was nothing there that I could see. And there's some undergrowth. Them pine trees they're planted. So there's like a valley in between the rows. And it's got about knee-high, some type of wild grass. I don't know what it is, but it's really thick. You cannot see the soil at all. And I thought he was standing right there. And the tree that I seen him standing beside had this huge vine that went from the ground all the way up to the limbs, and it was out about a foot from the tree. And so when I looked back, I seen that tree and I seen the vine. But what should have been one of these giants standing there beside it, there was nothing. And I convinced myself that I imagined it because of the encounters I had in the past. I started researching them. The very first one, I had no idea what I was looking at. I knew nothing about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And so it's still new to me. I don't know as much as probably 5% of the population actually researches it. The lowest 5%, that's where I'm at in knowledge. I don't know much about them. And so I thought I was seeing it from memory of a picture or something I saw on the internet. And as I was debating it, I was trying to decide, do I continue down the horseshoe, finish out this stalk walk, or do I turn around and go back the way I came and get back to my chair? And before I had time to make a decision on it, on the left side of me, that area, it goes down, it's probably a quarter of a mile, and there's a creek down there. It's swampy way down near the creek. There's no houses, no roads for quite several miles. It's very, very thick back there. A lot of open areas, but the majority of it is either real thick oak groves or it's the planted pines. Well, from down in that area, what sounded to be about 100 yards from me, there was 3 loud cracks, and just, I don't know how to explain it. It was not a shotgun or a rifle. That loud, it wasn't a boom, it was a crack. And it sounded like someone had cut down a mature oak or pine tree, and they had the log laying on the ground, and they took a wooden ball bat and they hit that thing as hard as they could 3 times, and it was just so loud it echoed. And that's when that spook factor hit me.
Yeah.
And so I turned and I went back to my chair, and so I got into the chair, and the time of day, it was almost dark. It was still daylight, but the sun had just gone behind the treetops. So I had about an hour before it got dark. And this is getting into the time the deer moved down in that area. And I turned and sat in my chair, and my back is facing the road. I have to walk behind my chair about 180 yards to get to the other logging road. I'm 20 yards off the one I just came across. It's a 200-yard stretch across there. Well, as I'm facing that logging road and that horseshoe road, from behind me and off to my left side, I heard the cooing sound that a dove makes.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever heard a dove, that real gentle, soft coo that they make. And that's the sound I heard. But it was so loud that my ear rattled like a blown speaker. It cracked and rattled, and it hurt my ear. The sound, it wasn't screaming loud. It was that soft coo sound, but the volume was so immense. And it was not coming from the treetops. It was coming from the ground. And I stood up. I can't turn my head to see behind me because of spine issues. So I had to stand up, and I turned around, and it done it again. And I knew the area. If I were to have a shotgun, I could have pointed in that area. And the scatter of the pellets from a shotgun, I would have hit whatever was in there if I were to fire at it. I knew the general, the path of where it was at, but the undergrowth is thick. If something is 35 or 40 feet from you in there, you can't see it. Even if it were a deer standing up, you wouldn't see him. And that sound, that dove sound, because of the volume of it, that's when the fear hit me. It scared me hearing the cracks on the tree down there, and then I thought I seen one on the other side of the road. Well, I went ahead and I got my chair off the tree and I threw it over my back, and I had to walk straight south to get to the other road. and this thing was southwest of me. So I had to walk in that general direction. And I get, if I remember correctly, it was probably 50 yards from that next logging road. And that's the one I had to walk a little over 700 yards to get to the point where I cut through these pines. It was a long walk. And, well, as I'm walking up there, that whatever was over there started making I don't know what the sound's called, but if you remember when you were a child, the children today don't do it like we did when we were younger, but we played a game of cowboys and Indians, and whoever was the Indian, they made that sound, that
right.
You know what
right.
I don't know what that sound's called, but that's the sound that started. And it was loud. It was real loud. It was, without a doubt, it was coming from that block of pine trees that I was in. And the limbs and twigs that were under it's got a dense pine straw floor in there. And the pine straw is probably 6 to 8 inches thick, and it's packed in from the weather through the years. But you can't step anywhere in there and not crack a twig. Under the pine straw is just littered with deadfall, and most of it's small, but it's pretty loud if you step on it. Well, he was moving the same direction I was going, but he was ahead of me and off to my right just a little bit. And he kept doing that Indian sound until when I could see that logging road. I was close enough that I physically could see it. That's when he stopped. He stopped moving. He stopped making that sound. And I got on that logging road, and I turned to the left, and I started headed back to the truck. And I've got a lot of issues with my body, structural bone. Got a bone disease. I've broken my back 3 times. I've broken my neck, broken my hips. I've had a lot of injuries. And running is not something that I'm capable of, regardless of what the situation is. I physically cannot run. And so I walked as fast as I could possibly walk without stubbing my foot. I've got a lazy leg, and I have to really think about it. If I'm walking fast, I have to make sure I get my foot up high enough my toe doesn't hit the ground, because I'll trip myself. And so I'm trying to move fast and then concentrate on keeping my left leg up. And this thing comes flying past me, and he's on my left. He didn't come out of that block of pines. He stayed in it.
Did you smell him?
No.
No smell at all?
No. Not until I got further down. But right there, he just about did a circle around me. He was on that, as I was coming out, he was on my right side. And then he cut behind me, and when I was on the road headed toward the truck, he would run past me, and he'd get about 50 yards past me, and the whole time he's running, he's doing that woo-woo-woo, that Indian sound that the kids would do when they're playing cowboys and Indians, and it was so loud. Just the sound, how loud it was, is what made it so frightening. It hurt my ears. It was so loud. But he would run ahead of me about 50 yards, and it sounded like an ATV or a 3-wheeler flying through all that deadfall and just breaking everything that was under that pine straw bed that's on the floor of the forest. Just nonstop cracking and crackling of the little limbs. But you could hear the thuds. You could almost feel them as he ran past. And he would stop and go dead silent until where I was on that logging road. When I got where I was even with him, he would take off again. He'd break out into a run, and doing that Indian call, and then he'd stop and he'd wait for me to catch up to him. And this went on until I got to the point I had to turn, and that 70, 75 yards to the truck. But it scared me so bad because when he ran, the thunderous steps, there's no way to explain it. Today when we were cutting the tree by that church, the tree was estimated to be 60 foot, the one that was dead and leaning over. And the guys that were up there in that big boom thing, they would cut chunks out of it about 2 foot, and they would toss them over to land on the grass. And that thud, it was almost like a thunk when it hit the ground, a real solid sound. And it reminded me of those footsteps. When he would run, it was a thud, a real heavy, solid thud with every step. And I got about 200, maybe 300 yards, a little past halfway, headed back to where I had to turn to go to the truck. And that's when I smelled it, and it was only for a brief area, maybe, I don't know, 50 yards maybe, that I walked, that I could smell it. And what I smelled was a skunk. It wasn't the same smell with the other encounters I've had. It was almost identical to a skunk, but it had a sour aroma to it. It smelled like a skunk that had soured. I don't know how else to explain it, but it almost had a burning, like it was rough on your nostrils. It wasn't an overpowering smell, but it was sharp. When you smelled it, Kim had cooked something, I don't remember what it was, and it had, I think it was cinnamon that she cooked with, and it would burn your nose a little bit.
Pungent.
Smelling it, it wasn't strong. But
pungent. It was pungent.
I'm sorry?
It was pungent?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
pungent.
Yeah.
And it wasn't at all overpowering to where I was gagging from it. But when the first whiff I got, it was almost identical to a skunk. And I figured he spooked a skunk. And as I walked a little further, then it had that pungent odor.
Yeah.
To where it was not a skunk, but it was similar. It was so close to being skunk-like.
Yeah.
It was very, very similar. But once I got to the part where I turned, and I could see the truck from there, he stopped. He didn't come out of that block of woods, and he went silent. And he did not leave. He was there. But where the walk coming back, it scared me so bad because I could only see 25 to 30 feet into the pines. It was just dark under them because the sun was below the treetops now behind me as I was coming out. And so everything was in shadow. I could see on the logging road. I could see all the way down it without the aid of a flashlight, but I could not see under the pines. And it was frightening to hear it, and I could almost pinpoint exactly where he was at, but I couldn't see him. And I called Kim on the phone because I was so scared this thing was going to come out and get me. I didn't have that feeling that he was going to hurt me. I didn't have that. But just hearing the size of him when he ran past and how loud he was making these sounds, it's impossible for a human to do that, to thud on the ground like that. And if you were so large and so heavy that your footfall would make a thudding sound, there's no way you'd be able to run. And this thing was pretty fast.
And they can run being a heavy and still make no noise whatsoever. When I believe, and this is just my belief though, Don, I believe if they run and they thud, they make that noise, they want you to hear them. because I've been in the woods where I didn't hear a sound. I mean, didn't hear a sound. And when they took off, I didn't hear a sound except for later on when you could hear them crashing through stuff. But they made no noise whatsoever. And then other times, I mean, even in this camper with the windows closed, I could feel the thud on the ground. You know, that
Yeah,
when they want you to hear them, they want you to hear them. Hey, Sissy. Hey, everybody new.
yeah. Hello, everyone. I can't see you, but if Dee sees you, I'll take her word for it any day of the week. Hello. But yeah, you're dead on the money, and that's what puzzled me after I got home and was thinking about it. I don't know if it was the one I saw, and I'm not saying that I definitely seen one. In my mind, I 100% thought I seen one, but it could have been a flash memory, and I'll get a little further in the story. The encounter part's over pretty much, but
okay. Well, I need to
I'll get to the
I need to stop you.
verification of it.
Yeah, I need to stop you right there and say one thing to you, Don, that I would like. I'm hoping that this was reassurance for you. Okay. I haven't been doing this 30, 40 years. I haven't even been doing this 10 years. Okay. It's only been the past going on 5 years that I've been doing this. And, you made a comment earlier that you are at the lowest on the low on the totem pole as far as knowing. Hon, you might as well join the rest of us, because even people that are veteran at this don't know a whole bunch more than you're knowing. We learn as we go, and not all of them are the same. And we might have similarities in states, countries, whatever, as far as males, females, juveniles.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you can kind of understand that you think maybe that's a juvenile because of their actions or reactions, but none of us know any more than you do. I promise you that. We might have a lot of, nobody knows these guys.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So don't think that you're at the bottom of the pole, because you're not.
Oh no, it gets aggravating to be so close to them so many times, but we know nothing about them.
No.
I know more about deer, and I've never raised a deer. I've never had one at my home that was running around that we cared for.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to, but because of the laws, I'm not even going to try. But they're out there, and there's so many of them. But they've got to be incredibly smart. And like that encounter, I don't know if he had been sitting there the whole time when I came back and sat in the chair, or if he was the one that I thought I saw. And if it was, then he went past me and got back behind my chair, and he waited on me to get back to the chair. I don't know how else to explain it unless it was a different one.
My opinion is he's probably been watching you. He probably knows, since you've been there before, that you cannot run. That you have some physical. Don't even ask me how I'm just guesstimating here. I mean, I could be totally off.
No,
but I believe that they know a little bit more about us than we think, and I think they're a little smarter than a lot of people give them credit for.
Absolutely.
But he was probably watching you and running, making noise, so you knew that it was him, and then running alongside it, to make all that noise. I don't think he was trying to get you out of there, because if he wanted you out of there, he would have done something different. But I think he was just toying with you, and it was, to me, my opinion, I would say it was a juvenile that was just messing with you. But they do stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's I believe you 100%, because what you just said. I told a friend of mine who's in the armed forces, and I purchased a boat motor from one of his buddies that they was in the service together. They retired the same year. They're very close. And he had told me, well, when we got to talk, when I got the boat motor, my other friend's name come up. And he that's how I found out that they knew each other and they were really close. Well, we got off on the subject of the big fellas, and he says, I have a man, a good friend of mine, that I want to introduce you to, and he can help you. Well, I asked him to give this guy my phone number, and he contacted me, and well, he showed up, and we talked here at my house for a while, and he said the exact same thing what you just said, and I was telling him it was just days after I had this encounter, and he says, would you be interested in taking me up there and showing me? I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, can we go now? And it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I've had a few of my friends that I trusted enough to tell them about these things. They want to go see it, but then they back out. There's always a reason why they can't go. And I understand it. It's to see something that size, even the ones that are that look thick, that are skinny,
Yeah.
they're huge. They're so big, so tall. They're just dense. And well, he took me up there, and I took him back to where it happened when I walked around the horseshoe road. And we got back to the spot, and he says, well, show me where you were standing when you thought you saw him. And I pointed the tree out, because it's the only pine tree in that area that has this huge vine going all the way up from the ground to the top of it. And I just had to figure out where I was on the road. And I got, I'm pretty sure I was within 3 feet of the exact spot. And I told him right here. And he asked me what I thought the height was on him. And I told him, I said, he looked to be about 6.5 foot. He wasn't real tall, but I was a fair distance away. I was about 40 feet. He was right by that tree right there. And he said, well, that's more to 45, maybe 50 feet. Well, he says, I'm going to go over there and stand next to the tree, because this guy was 6'4", and he said, if he's 6.5 foot, then he should be about to the top of my hat. And he had it looked like a cowboy hat, but it was plastic.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been a hard hat, I don't know, but it wasn't a real cowboy hat. Well, it stands up off his head a little bit. And he walked over there, and I remembered where the top of this thing's head was, because
Florida.
There's a limb sticking out. There's 2 on that side of the tree, and one of them is pretty high up. But the next one, it's about 1 foot long. It's just a dead limb, and on a pine, when they die, they kind of break off in sections until you get this little stub sticking out. And this thing's head was about 6 inches below that stub. Well, when he walked over there and stood next to that tree, and he put his leg just behind it and put his hand the way I saw it standing, and it was so far above his head, and he got a tape measure out and he measured it, and I don't remember what the measurement was. I think it was almost 9 feet or almost 9.5. It was up there a lot higher than what I thought it was. Well, I told him that, it could have been an imagination, because I've done a lot of research to try to learn about these things, because they've got to be intelligent. They don't usually mess with me when I'm hunting. In that area, that was the only time that I had one actually come out and then follow me to the truck when I was hunting. Now, they do it's almost regularly when I go out there. If I'm not hunting and I'm just hiking, I always have stuff sort of flanking me, but they're not as loud as this one was. Well, this guy, I wish I remember his name. He works, I don't remember the name of the group. It's letters. It was 4 or 5 letters. I know the first 2 stands for Bigfoot. but I don't remember the rest of it. Well, he come out on the road and he starts pointing, and this logging road, there's no growth on it. It's been beaten down through the years when they come through and cut, and so the ground under it it's fairly hard, but it's got a thick layer of pine needles that cover the road. And he comes up and he said, well, there's a track right there. And he pointed down just in front of me, and I didn't see it at all. And I could spot a deer track or a wild pig track from what I believe is a decent distance.
Was he from the BFRO?
Yes, that's what it was.
Okay.
BFRO.
Okay.
And, well, he squats down and he's right in front of me. I'm watching him, everything that he's doing, and he squatted down and he pulled the pine straw back with one hand and just raked it back, and there was a footprint embedded in that dirt. And I don't know how he's seen it. He did not put it there. So I've watched him really close because I don't know this guy. I've never met him up until that day. And it was big. It was much bigger than my boot, and that was a size 13 boot that I had on, and it was longer. Well, he got a tape measure out. Hey, girls. I'm sorry, it's my dogs. But he got his tape measure out, and he had me hold one end of it so he could hold the other end with one hand, and then his free hand, he was taking pictures. And it was 17 inches, a little over 17. I don't remember the exact number. But it was huge, really wide, especially in the middle. It looked like this thing was so heavy that his arches collapsed, because it wasn't like, it was human-shaped, but you could see the entire bottom of the foot. It wasn't narrow in the center like ours is. And 5 or 6 feet in front of it, he said, there's another one. And he moved the pine straw, and it was about the length of my hand, like maybe a 7 or 8 year old child.
Yeah.
But these are bare tracks, bare footprints, and you would be out of your mind to walk out there barefoot because of the sand spurs that we have. They're
yeah,
awful.
I hate sand spurs.
Oh, they will make you cry.
Yeah.
That excuse me. And the snakes are bad.
Yeah.
But there were so many tracks, and he would just point down and say there was a track, and I could not see an indentation. I couldn't see it at all. And I went back several times after that while I was hunting, and I was looking for the tracks. He showed me how to see them, but even to this day I cannot spot them like that. And I don't know how he's seeing them. But everywhere he pointed, when he raked the pine straw, there was a footprint.
You'll pick it up eventually. You'll pick it up eventually, Don. It'll get to the point where you'll recognize them.
Well, I thought he was slipping one over on me and making a track. And the big one, I didn't want to mess it up, just in case it was real.
Yeah.
But the small one, not the little bitty one that looked like a small child, but there was another one that was probably around a size 9 or 10 shoe.
Uh-huh.
And I run my fingers across it, and I guess it was stepped on when it was wet, because it was indented, and it was hard. It wasn't that you could wipe your hands through it and draw a footprint. It was kind of cast into the dirt. But talking to him, he was telling me that where the one was by the tree that was right at the 9-foot mark, he said that they will drop down. If they're spotted, if you blink or you turn your head, that they'll drop down on their belly, and they'll lay there, and they can crawl without getting on their hands and knees like we would, that they use their fingers and toes, and they'll crawl.
Yep, they look like spiders.
Yeah, and he took us to prove the point to me, because I told him, I said, I would have seen it. I mean, this thing was black. There was no camo color, and it was black. and he took that hat. It was a kind of a creamy tan color, and it was plastic, so there was no smashing it flat. And he just dropped it right there where this thing was standing. And from where I was at on the road, I could not see it at all. I couldn't see it through the grass.
Hold on one second. Hold on a second, Don. Denny, you don't have the wick up enough. It just keeps going out. The wick has to be. You have to turn the wick up higher. Sorry. He's trying to light my. He's trying to light my tiki torch out there, but it just keeps going out. Sorry. Otherwise, because everybody else is looking at darkness here in a second, it'll be totally dark.
Oh, I got you. On the screen, I got you.
Yeah, on the screen. Well, I'll tell you what. There's a lot of, up on the property where I was with Sandy, I was all rock, and we couldn't find hardly any prints. I found some in the soft soil at one point. It was really dusty out. It was like, it had been like 100 degrees for a week, and everything was so dry. And I found a real tiny little footprint, and then I found a really nice one right behind my window of the camper the next morning after we saw eye shine. And that one was only probably, I would say, maybe 7-8 inches long. But other than that, because of the rock, I couldn't find any. But I've been on a couple of expeditions where they've showed me how to, squat down there and look at certain things, because if you're looking at the ground, especially if there's a lot of animals there, you don't really pay attention unless it's distinct. But if you see an area that looks like something has walked through it, and it's just a little on the discolored side or a little bit of movement, if you kind of move those off to the side a little bit, sometimes you'll find a print underneath them. And that's what this Native American guy was showing me. First, he showed me the small branches that were broken, and then he showed me on the ground, and he said, "Where do you think the prints would be?" And I said, "Probably underneath all that leaf litter." And he said, "Then move it aside." So I moved some aside, and sure enough, I found hog prints underneath that stuff, and I would never have thought to look there. I just would have stepped on it.
Wow, the twigs, that's when I'm tracking, like wild hog hunting, they're really difficult to just drop in their tracks. They are an endurable animal. They're well built.
Yeah.
They are suited for any environment.
Yeah.
And so I don't care what caliber firearm you have. It's not often that you shoot one and he just drops, unless you can shoot him in the head and you shut his oven off.
Yeah.
And so we would have to track them. And the way they're built, they'll bleed for a short distance. And then the fat, they have such a heavy coat of fat in winter, it plugs the hole up and there's no more blood. And so you have to track them. You have to look for the twigs. And when a pig or a deer steps on them and they snap it, usually it'll stick in the dirt and they kind of poke out like two little dead baby trees growing.
Yeah.
And so they're easy to track. But like when he pointed those footprints out, there were no twigs. And I could not see, there's got to be something that he's looking for to spot him, because everywhere he pointed and said there's a track, when he raked back the pine straw, there was indeed a track. He was not wrong, not one time. And I could not see it for the life of me. And I didn't want to ask him to show me, because it's kind of a pride thing, I guess, or embarrassed. I'm a seasoned hunter, and I can track almost any game animal. And I've never lost them from not being able to track them. But I can't track something that large. Something, it don't add up. But I'm over it now. Just at the time, it was odd. It was just completely odd.
Yeah.
But everything that what you had said, because I told him about the sound, the dove sound, and then that Indian sound, and the way it would run past me and wait for me to catch up and take off. And he said it was a juvenile. He didn't say probably it's like he knew, matter of factly, it was a juvenile.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I never got the feeling that I was in danger, but I'm scared of him, and that's all there is to it. And there's no sense hiding it. I've tried to do live streams out there and keep my cool, and sometimes one will go by behind the bush, and I'll see him through the bush, and it'll scare me so bad, and I kind of panic on the live stream, and so I can't play it off that I'm not scared, because people will see it when I do the live streams, so I just say it what it is, that they scare me. And
Wow. I don't think you need to pretend that you're
sorry?
not scared. You know? I don't think I don't
But
think
the
I don't know.
question I got before on it was, which you run into a lot of people that they mock you. And, well, if you've seen so many of them, if you did in fact see that many, then you'd be used to them by now. And, well, I've seen quite a few of them, and I don't think I ever will get used to them. I'm not as afraid as I was back in 2011. That was my bad encounter, and that's the one that changed everything.
Yeah.
And before that encounter, 2010, we went down on the river and we camped for hunting. And the guys at the camp, there was a bunch of us, but everybody drank except for me. And so they would start drinking and getting loud and the cursing. So I would just go walking out behind the camp, and I'd walk about a half a mile out into the swamp. Most of it's dry. There are wet areas.
Yeah.
And all I have is a little battery-operated headlamp. And it's bright if you turn it on to high setting, but it don't last long on that setting, and then you're in total darkness. But I've never had the fear, and every once in a while I'd get that feeling that I was definitely being watched, but I never seen what was watching me, and so it never registered that I have something to be afraid of. And after that encounter in 2011, if I get that feeling I'm being watched, I get overwhelmed with fear. I mean, it consumes me.
Yeah.
And I wished it didn't, but it's horrible. I don't know how to explain it. There's no scary movie that I've ever seen that put the fear in me like that, except one movie, and that was when I was young, when The Exorcist first came out. That was the first scary movie my parents allowed me to see, because they wanted me to know the dangers of doing things against God. They wanted me to have that sink in, so there was no chance in me messing with the demonic. And I was fascinated. I was thrilled. I'm old enough to watch a scary movie, and that thing gave me nightmares.
Yeah, me too.
And it just, that fear, when I seen that, that is what I went through in 2011, except it wasn't on a movie screen. It was right there. It was right in my face. But that, I do want to share that encounter with you, because I thought about it. There's a guy that had emailed me, and he's had a bad encounter, and he won't allow me to share what he went through. And I was thinking about I pushed him on it. It needs to get out, because you could save someone's life by it. Well, then I got to thinking about what I went through.
Right.
And it's got to get out. People need to know that not all of them are bad. The area that I hunt they just appeared one day, and a lot of them. But I've never had nothing bad happen to me. They're always there. And sometimes you'll hear them walking through the swamp, and it's an unmistakable, very heavy, very loud bipedal steps. And you won't see them, but looking through the trees, you can see the waves from where, they're always about 10 foot out of range, or they'll be to where you cannot lay eyes on them, but you can see the waves, and every once in a while you can see the reflection of something tall and dark moving through the water, but you can't make out it, what it is. It's just a shadow with a bunch of waves distorting it, so you can't tell.
Right.
But I do want to tell you about the encounter, the bad one I had. And I wasn't going to give the area, but I decided, I think it's best that I do. I've run into other people in this general area, within 8 to 10 miles of this area, that have had encounters. And one of the guys that I go to church with, in his line of work, one of his customers, he travels, and he goes to people's homes and to their farms for what he does. And one of his customers, fairly close to this area, one of these things showed up, and where he lives, his family built that house in the early 1900s, and he inherited it. And through farming, he's purchased more land around, and he's got a just beautiful piece of land over there. And this house has been there forever. And these things are, I don't know how many he's got, but one showed up, and it started by killing his chickens, and then it went to destroying his crop, and then it went to where now it's at his house, and he's got asbestos siding, the old little squares of asbestos they put on the old houses.
Yeah.
Well, at night, late at night when he's sleeping, this thing comes up and starts punching the walls, and it's busting holes in that asbestos.
Good grief.
And he's got a wall inside. I've never seen the house, but from what I was explained, the inside, the walls are covered with paneling from the 70s, the old wooden paneling.
Yeah.
And where two sheets of paneling come together is right on a 2x4 that's in the wall. And on the outside, this thing punched the wall, and it knocked a hole in that asbestos, but it cracked the 2x4, and it pushed the paneling out about an inch off the wall, and you can, it won't push back in because the board's broke, and it's bowed inward.
Good grief.
But they're coming up on a regular basis. Things coming up is throwing big, heavy bricks and just whatever it can find onto the roof of this guy's house. And it's just a tin roof. He's got the old whatever wood they used under him back then. So it's not going through into the living space, but he's got damage, big dents all over the roof where this thing comes up at night and won't seem gone. And I don't know how he deals with it. And he's contacted the Game and Fish Commission, and he's contacted the Sheriff's Department, and they won't do nothing. It's a bunch of kids.
There's a few things he can do. We can either talk about that now, or we can talk about that later, but there are a few things he can do to minimize, to see, first of all, a lot of prayers go up out there. Praying seems to make a difference, verbalizing that prayer out loud. Game cameras pointing in the direction of the wood line or outside the area does hinder them from coming up really close. Although I've heard them actually come up and take the cameras off and throw them on the ground. And like Rick from Wood Booger Farm, I think that they move his cameras around, but his are used to being there and used to the cameras, so they know what they are. But the first thing I would say is light that place up like a baseball field.
Yeah, I haven't met the man, but a friend of ours who's done work for him, that's how he found out about it. The guy, I don't know if he confided in him or if he seen the damage and asked about it, but the man had walked him around and showed him what all has happened up there, and this thing's been wreaking havoc on him.
Well, he's doing it because the guy's letting him. All right, I'm not minimizing it, but I'm just saying there are ways. Some people, they're not. I don't believe that they are Sasquatches, and there's other things that go bump in the night that can actually do a lot of damage out there. Some other cryptids.
Yeah.
But if it is indeed a Sasquatch, my suggestion, if there's a way to get in that guy to explain it to him, tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody, light that place up. You know, light it up, and
Oh,
they don't like it. They don't like the lights, and they don't like the cameras,
well, I'll definitely.
and they don't like
Sure.
prayer either. Some of them don't like prayer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That it reminded me when you talked about the other things. Quit chewing that, girl. The other cryptids. That area over there, which I didn't find out until about a year ago, but they've had encounters of that other thing that's got the head of a dog.
Yeah, I call them
That's supposed
DMs.
to be.
I call them DMs because we don't want to. I believe if you call them, you're basically conjuring them. I could be so off, but just a gut feeling. So I call them DMs. That way I'm not calling them.
Well, when you want your dog to come in, how do you get him in? You call him by his name.
Mhm.
And, you got a point there, and I feel the same on it, especially when it comes to the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much history to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you guys want, if you want to know some history about some of the nasty stuff that's out there, one person you can talk to that's on our chat all the time is Miss Martha. She's done a lot of studying about that kind of stuff, and I'll tell you what, she really knows about she studied the evil stuff, and she can help you out as far as that. But my main thing when it comes to something I'm not sure of, my first reaction is prayer. My first reaction is prayer. I ask for the blood of Jesus, and I ask for, I rebuke, whatever is evil or demonic, and I really go at it, because I'll tell you what, I sound like an absolute warrior out there, and I put my foot down, and I am adamant. I don't want to hear anything that has to do with that kind of stuff. And so the first thing we do when I go to property, even with somebody else on their property, say we're going to someone's house who's having interactions with something, on my way there, I'm silent because I'm praying. I am praying. I am praying and praying and praying. So when I get there, I am prayed up, and I am ready. I am really, really ready. Hey, Matt.
That's what we call the day pray.
Yeah.
Usually when I'm driving, I do it a lot.
Yeah. But you have a lot. You do have a lot of knowledge. I don't think you know how much knowledge you actually have. But let me tell you something. I think one step that a lot of us in this chat, a lot of us on this channel have, now you included, is the power of prayer. And we all use the power of prayer, and that is the strength. That is our strength as far as this is concerned. And I think one of the reasons why some people don't have as bad as encounters as others is because of the power of prayer.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, because the bad encounter that I had, that was 2011, and I got saved in 2012.
Well, not only that, Donnie, maybe you weren't saved at that time, but, I think most people's, if they've never heard of it, their first encounter is traumatic no matter what you think. I mean, I never heard about Sasquatch or Bigfoot growing up. Never did. Not once did I ever hear of it. But then again, I never stepped foot in a church growing up either, so I didn't know anything about God. But if I'd have, back when I was 16, 17, even 25, 30 years old, if I'd have seen one of these things out in the woods, I probably would have had a stroke. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, well, I know exactly what you're saying.
Hey, Mike, there's just no way. We don't know how anybody's going to respond. I mean, I joke around a lot on the channel, and I say, don't, like Wes Germer said, be careful what you ask for or what you wish for. And that's true, because I know there's a lot of people that say they would like to see one. And, if it's from a distance or if it's a friendly encounter, I agree. It's nice to be able to say, hey, I actually saw one, in hindsight. But talk to Ramona, who kept saying, I want to see one, I want to see one, I want to see one. Good grief, that poor woman went through weeks of anxiety, bad anxiety because of what she saw. And it wasn't even aggressive. it does not hit your brain because, I mean, your brain does not know how to process the girth or the height of these things. I mean, it just doesn't.
No.
We can all say, you know, we've watched TV, we've been to zoos, we've seen grizzly bears, oh my goodness, you know, lions, tigers, bears, oh my, but not loose, you know. I mean, it wasn't
That's
loose and
right.
charging you. Whole different ball game when that thing's standing in front of you. No,
Yes, it
Filmer, I
is.
don't. Let me hold on a second, Donnie. Let me answer some questions here. I'm sorry, guys. What I'm trying to do is when Donnie starts his story, I just let him roll. You know, I don't want to interrupt him. I just let him roll. But we have a little break right here. So, Filmer, no, I don't think that they're all evil at all. I can't say it's like a person. I think people as a whole, you know, you can say are either evil or not evil. You know, I think people as a whole are not evil, but there are evil people. I believe the same thing with the Sasquatch. I believe there are evil ones, and I believe that there are some that aren't just, you know, that aren't. But there's other things I think are evil. Anyways, so do you
Yeah.
guys have any
Well,
questions for Donnie before he gets into his encounter, his bad encounter? Anybody have any questions? I'd like to get that in if we can, or any comments for Donnie so we can. Hey, Bill. Hi, everybody that just came in. Hello, my lurkers. I love you. Okay, so we don't have, it doesn't look like we have any questions, Donnie. It looks like everybody wants you to go ahead and jump into your encounter. Hello, Jamie.
all right.
So anytime you're ready.
All right. I wanna tell everyone where this happened at. Um, it's a small area, small town, but there's a lot of people out there, and they're either farmers and they hunt off the land that they own, or they have leases in that area. There's a lot of outdoorsmen. That entire area is a farming community, and it's just south of Alabama and Georgia. It's just, I think it's about a 30-minute ride, and you can cross over in Alabama. In about 45 minutes, you'll be in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Marianna, Florida. And for those of you that know the area, if you were to take Highway 90, which Highway 90 comes in the west side of Marianna, and it goes all the way across and out the east side. On the west side of Marianna, on Highway 90, there's a short stretch of two-lane highway that turns off of Highway 90, and it runs north. I'm thinking it's about 3 to 4 miles, and it dead ends at US 231, and that is Highway 73. And on Highway 73 north, that's where I had my encounter. And this was 2011, around April that year. It was summertime. And we had a contract with several farmers to remove feral pigs that were destroying the crops. We had one up closer to Alabama, a farm that was a cattle farm, and he lost a few large, very expensive breeder bulls due to boar hogs, wild boars coming in and getting aggressive at feeding time and cutting the legs on the bulls with their tusks. And it cost the man a fortune.
I'm sure.
And so we would go up and we'd set traps up, 16 by 16 foot traps, and we bait them up, put water in them, and we go and check them every other day. And we always had wild pigs in them. And what we had done is the boars, we would shoot them, and then at that time, you could take them to the shelter, the homeless shelter in Panama City, as long as we cleaned it. We skinned it and quartered it up. That's all. We didn't have to cut it into steaks and all of that. We got the skin off, and we cut the legs off, the hams, the shoulders, the ribs, and then we take it up there, and they use it to feed those that were in need. And they stopped it on us. And there were months that we moved 225 pigs. Females that were pregnant or that had babies, we turned them loose. And we would have gotten a lot of trouble with the farmers had we had told them we were doing that.
Yeah.
But me and the group of men that we did this with, it's very unethical to shoot a mother of anything.
Right.
The babies, which wild pigs, they'll have anywhere from 10 to 18 babies, and you kill her, you've killed all of them. And so those we turn loose. Well, this farm, the one off of Highway 73 in Marianna, it was 2,400 acres. And when you pull off of 73, you're in a small field, about 20 acres. And there was a road, a little two trail that cut off on the north side, and it went through an area that there's a few caves up in that area and springs. And so the state, the owner of the farm, paid taxes on that land. But those areas with the caves and the springs were considered state park land, and so he was not allowed to clear it or to plant any crop. He couldn't do anything with it but pay taxes on it. Excuse me. Now, the little field that you come into, that little 25 acre field, when you pull off from the highway, directly on the other side of the field was a little two trail that the tractor, when he come in and they were cutting the peanuts or spraying, when he sprayed the little field, then he would cross through the swamp, through this two trail, and he'd go to the big field. And it was, I think it was around 1,800 acres. Well, that little two trail road, I had a Toyota Tercel, and we went up that night, and it was about 10 o'clock, and I didn't get to check that trap the day before, and I didn't get to check it that day. I was really busy, and it had to be checked because in the heat down here, the pigs, they'll suffer and they'll die if they don't have water. They've got to have water. And so I called a friend of mine and I asked her if she would mind riding up there with me so I didn't have to go alone in case I got snake bit. It's loaded with copperheads and water moccasins. And so I picked her up and I had her drive. And I told her, so it was hot out and a lot of mosquitoes. So I would stop I'd go across that peanut field around the edge of it. There's a little trail. And then on where that little dim road, that the trail the tractor uses to go from that little field to the big field, I pulled the front of the car just into that little two trail. And it's a straight shot from that little field to the big one, probably 100 yards. And it's both sides of it, it's just immensely thick. And none of us in the group that was removing these wild pigs, none of us have ever went into that because of how thick it is. You can't get through it. It's real tall oak trees and a few hickory trees, but it's covered in briars and these muscadines, like a wild grape.
I love muscadines.
Oh, yeah, me too. But it goes from the ground up to 40 or 50 feet up these trees.
Yeah, ooh, yum.
And it's beautiful in the daytime,
Yeah.
but it's eerie at night because it's so dark in that little two trail. Well, she pulled the car up, she just did get the whole car on that trail, and I had her stop because about 3/4 of the way down, a little further than that down it, there's a little creek about a foot wide that crosses it. And that car would have been stuck if I tried to cross. It's muck. It's real soft mud, and it's just a little crevice about 2.5 foot wide, but it's a foot and a half deep. So the car would have dropped them little tires in it, and we would have been in a bad way.
Yeah.
So she stayed in the car with the air conditioner running, and I had I used a 7mm short magnum rifle because some of the shots we were taking were 200 or 300 yards across that field, and a black powder gun won't make those shots.
Right.
And it's got a spotlight that's mounted on top of the scope, and then there's a little small battery pack that clips to your belt that powers the light. And I had that with me, and then a little headlamp that I wear on my head uses 2 AA batteries, and the headlamp, it's got a low, medium, high, and a red light and a green light. And each time you press the button, you have to cycle through all of the different lights. If you're on medium and you want to go to low, you'd have to go through the high, the red, the green, and then the low.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Room.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was an Energizer light or Ozark Trail. It's from Walmart.
Yeah.
Well,
I like them,
I
though.
Keep it on, I'm sorry?
I like them, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I still use them. Not that one, but the newer model.
Yeah.
But I keep it on low so my batteries will last me longer. And when I got out, I've got my fanny pack on my waist, and it's got a snake bite kit, my compass, just the basic necessities if something were to happen. And I got my rifle and the headlamp on. Well, I'm walking down that trail. I get out of the car, and she turns the lights off, and the car's running, and the Toyota Tercels they're almost silent. And I'm walking down that 2 trail. In the middle of, between the 2 tire tracks is grass, probably knee high, but the 2 individual tire tracks are dirt, and there's a few twigs and a few leaves in it. And so I'm walking on the dirt, trying to get across. I got to get to the end of it, to the big field, and then just 150, 200 yards across that field is where the trap was that I needed to check. Well, as I'm going down that 2 trail, on my left side in that real thick stuff, I was hearing something walking. And I stopped, and it would stop. But I would, if I would take 5 steps, it would take 5, but when I'd stop at my last step, then whatever was moving, it would take that 1 extra, so I'd hear it. But I got down to where that little small stream is that crosses that road, and you have to kind of sidestep over it because it's muddy. You can't just step straight over it. You have to kind of go to the center of the 2 trail and then step sideways so you don't end up falling in that nastiness.
Yep.
Well, when I got up to it, I took that last step, I heard a sound on my left from this thing that was moving. And I figured it was either a coyote or a wild pig because there's so many of them out there. And I didn't think nothing of it. Well, I heard this sound, and it was the same time I took that last step. And so my step, the crunch of my step, sort of muffled it.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't understand what I heard. It was just a deep, almost like a pig grunt, but it was not a grunt. It was, I didn't know what it was. It was just a very deep, bassy, throaty sound. when the crunch of my foot landed, it it messed it up where I couldn't understand what I heard. I don't know what it was. But I stopped and listened, and it stopped. And I thought, well, there's got to be a pig right there. So I went ahead, I stepped over the stream, and I went across that field. And I got to the trap, and it was empty. And so I reset the door on it, and I start walking back. And my headlamp, I keep it on low to where the battery will last me, and if not, that thing will eat up batteries in 4 or 5 hours. I get back to that trail, and I get over to that little stream, and I step back across it, and I heard that same sound again. But this time, my foot I already planted my foot on the ground, and so when it made that sound, there was no crunching to distort it. All I heard was it, and I knew exactly and what it was. It was a growl, and it was such a deep, deep, throaty sound. And it reminded me what I was imagining in my head was if just a huge dog or just any type of large growling animal would be down in a well and growling, that echoing.
Yeah.
It almost echoed.
Yeah.
Well, it scared me. And I took another step or two, and then the smell hit me. And it was almost to the point of making you want to puke. It was awful. And it had, and I know it sounds cliche, but it honestly smelled like a dog that had been playing and got hot and sweaty, and they get wet, and that musky, wet dog smell. But it smelled like there was roadkill.
I was gonna say like it rolled in cat poop and then jumped in a dead body cavity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it had a body odor, like
Yeah.
when we were in junior high in the locker room, the boys' locker room had that sweaty, stinky feet body odor.
Yep.
And it was just all these horrible odors mixed into one. And I never smelled it coming. Well, at this time, I've never heard of the Sasquatch. I never heard of the Bigfoot. I knew nothing about them. But some of my family members worked for the forestry department. And one of them, he hunts regularly. And where he hunts, where his land leases are, they have bear problems, a lot of bears. And he always told me that you'll know when a bear's near because they stink. And I've never encountered a bear, so I don't know what they smell like.
Ew.
But I associated the growl and this stench to be a bear, a big bear. And so I got in the dirt track from where the tires of that tractor roll back and forth, and I had my headlamp shined down to where I could see to make sure I didn't step on a leaf or a twig. If it didn't see me, I did not want to draw its attention.
Right.
And I took baby steps, and I moved as slow as I could toward the car, and this thing is flanking me, is growling. Like every other breath, it's growling, and it was just, I don't know what to compare that fear to, other than the first time I seen the movie The Exorcist. That fear as a child, that was the fear that came over me. I was petrified because in my mind, this huge bear is fixing to run out and maul me. And due to my health problems, I cannot run. If someone's going to beat me, it's better for me to just stand there and take the beating, because at least my back's not hurting from running. I'm not out of breath. So this thing, if it's a bear, you cannot escape them. They can swim underwater, they can climb, they can open your car door. They're extremely intelligent, and I'm thinking this bear's going to come out and get me. As I'm walking toward the car, he's now, when I came in, he went the same direction I was going, toward that large field.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm coming back to the car, he's headed toward the car. He's following me. But he's on my right side as I'm headed back, and as he's walking, he's coming toward me. He's walking the same direction, but he's angling where we're going to meet up. If he steps out of this brush, this wall of vines, I had that fear. He was going to step out, and I was going to be right there beside him, or he would be right in front of me. And what do you do? And I've got a rifle in my hands, but like I told you a couple of weeks ago when we talked, I've shot a wild pig that's knee-high at the back with a 12-gauge, with a 3-inch Magnum 12-gauge shell at almost point-blank range. He's 5 feet from me, and we never found him. And if something that small is that durable, what is a 400 or 500 pound bear? What is he capable of taking? And that was the fear I had. You know, unless you could shoot him in the brain, but that's in the movies. In a real life situation, the chances of you making that shot are slim to none.
Yeah.
At least for me it is. And well, I tried to keep the pace up to try to get ahead of him. And either he turned directly toward the 2 trail, or he slowed down. I could still hear him walking, and it was just a thud every step, and it sounded like bipedal. It was, without a doubt, it was 2 feet. But in my mind, I'm still seeing a bear, because that area does have bears. I've never seen one up there, but we called a lot of tracks. We got one on one of the trail cameras, and we had one even tear up one of the pens, the hog traps. But I've never physically seen one. With my own eyes, I haven't seen it. Well, he stepped through that wall of vines and briars, and I heard him when it was loud. All the leaves and it's like he just parted all of that veil of foliage.
Yeah.
And when he did, and he stepped out on the trail, he was just behind me, and I stopped. And I was praying to God, please let him, not see me or not smell me. He started to growl, and he was right behind me, and I was so scared. And my headlamp was on, pardon me, and I got the rifle. I got my right hand on the stock, the butt end, and my fingers in the trigger channel. I turned the safety off. I'm prepared to shoot him if I have to. And the barrel is pointing sort of toward the sky, and I got it up near my left shoulder. Well, then this growling, he breathed like he was a heavy smoker, that gurgly sound, that the lung disease that people who smoke a bunch
Emphysema.
Yes, emphysema. It sounded like he had that. And he would breathe in, and it was real gurgly sounding, and then he'd growl on the exhale. And it was so long, and I could feel the breath hitting me, and I don't know if it was my imagination or if I physically felt it, but I thought I was feeling his breath hitting me on the back of my neck. And I keep my hair really short, so there's nothing to block it if it were. And finally, I turned, and I don't know if you guys have never seen any of my videos, I have limited movement on my neck. I had a very serious spine injury, and they had to remove a lot of bone and stuff out of my neck, and so I can't turn my head as far to the left and right as most people. But I twist at the waist to turn. I can turn to a certain point, but then I have to twist. And I twisted, and I couldn't see him, so I sort of rotated my heel to where I could get my toes pointed to the side where I could turn further. And I'm doing this as slowly as I could possibly move, because I didn't want to, if it was a bear and he was sitting there looking at me, I didn't want to provoke an attack from him.
Right.
Because I knew he was close. It sounded like he was around 10 feet when he stepped out behind me.
Good Lord.
And as I'm trying to get turned, he would growl, and I would hear a thump, like a thud, and I could feel it coming through the ground, through my feet.
Yeah.
And he would growl, and I'd get this thud. And so I finally got the courage up to, I got to face him. I've got a loaded rifle, a Magnum rifle. Safety's off, my finger's on the trigger. I've got to turn. And if I move slow enough, I could get this barrel pointed between his eyes, and I can stop him. But it's a one-shot thing if I have to do this. And all of this is playing out in my mind. Well, as I finally get turned, I'm looking down, expecting to see a big black head, waist high or chest high, and I can't see nothing. It's dark, it's black. And then I realized I cannot see the peanut field. And we had a big moon that night. It was not full, but out in the peanut field, you didn't need a light. You could see all the way across the field. There was enough moonlight out. But in this two-trail, on both sides, the trees were so tall, I don't remember which side the moon was on, but it was, I was in shadow. It was dark in this little trail. But I couldn't see the field out there at all. And my mind was so confused. There's a bear right here. I cannot see him. I cannot see the dirt, the two stripes going through the ground, the tire tracks. And I couldn't see the peanut field. It was like my vision just cut off when I turned to where I could face him. And then he growled again. And I realized it was coming from over my head and not down low. And I took my left hand and I grabbed on the headlamps. If you twist them, they tilt upwards or down. And I had it pointing almost straight down. So when I'm going across the peanut field, if there was a copperhead, I would see him before he got me. But it was still down like that. And so I just turned it up two of the little notches to where I could see ahead of me a little ways. And I seen hands. And as I kind of leaned back to where I could look up, the light hit him in its upper chest from my headlight and lit up his shoulder, his upper chest. I could see his neck, his face. And I was looking at a man, a big, hairy man, a very angry man. But he didn't have teeth. I've heard a lot of people say they got the big canine teeth, the pointed on the corners, and he didn't. It looked like a man's mouth.
Like chiclets? Like big old horse
yes,
teeth?
They were perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, they were white. They were straight. I mean, he had a human mouth on him.
Yeah.
But he was so big, and his eyes were, they were too big for his face. They looked out of, they shouldn't have been on his head. They were too large for his head, if that sounds right.
Yeah, it sounds right.
But what was registering with me was a caveman.
Right.
And that's where, on my videos, where I go out looking for any type of evidence of the existence of these things. And one day I'm going to get one on video. I haven't yet, but that's the reason the earlier videos, when I started doing this, are titled In Search of Florida's caveman.
Right. Mine look like that too here, though, Don. Mine don't look like the normal skunk apes or some of the other ones that have the big canines. The ones that are here, when they open their mouth, they have basically horse teeth. They're chiclets. They're square. They're
Yeah.
not. They're not. They're not canines. That's a different type.
That's the way this was, and there was nothing about this thing that reminded me of a gorilla or a monkey or any type
That's right.
of that line of species. There was
Early,
nothing
early
other than
man.
the hair.
Early man, but very large, very wide, very scary.
Yes, yeah. I was looking at a caveman,
Yep.
and almost identical to what we seen coming up in junior high and high school. What they taught us that we came from.
Yeah.
Not the early one that looks like it's half chimpanzee.
But the
But
Neanderthals.
The
Neanderthals.
next one, I think it is.
Neanderthals?
Neanderthal. That's what I was looking at. And it was so large, but he had his arms from his shoulder to his elbow. He had them pressed hard against his sides. And he had his hands and his forearms pointing to me. But he had his hands were balled up in a fist.
Yeah.
And he would sling his arms, his fists, toward the ground real fast. And each time he'd sling them down, he'd stomp his foot. And that was that thud and then the ground shaking that I kept feeling.
Yep.
And I was so scared. As he exhaled, when he growled and exhaled, there was spit bubbles landing on me. If I would have reached out, I would not have had extended my arm. I could have reached out with my elbow almost fully bent, and I could have touched his fist. It was right there on me. And that's when the smell was coming off of him. There was no doubt, because he'd swing his fist down. The smell would kind of hit me. And I'd smell it real strong just for a second. I was so petrified. And my mind, I'm trying to put bear with what I'm seeing, this Neanderthal thing. And I ended up, I turned back. There was no thinking about shooting him at all. I mean, that thought was gone.
Of course not.
To see the size of him, it never crossed my mind to shoot him. And if I would have thought about it, there's no way. I don't think it would have hurt him. And I turned back toward the car, and I knew I was probably 50 to 60 yards from the car. I was halfway down that trail, and I could see the reflection of the moon off the front bumper was chrome, and then it had these little rings around the headlights that were chrome. And I could see the moonlight reflecting off of them. I could see the car. And I didn't want to yell out to her to where she could see me. And I pointed the headlamp toward the car, and I started flicking through the different modes of light as fast as I could click that little button. And then finally, she turned the headlights on. And he's still behind me, doing this growling and stomping his foot. He never touched me, but his if I would have turned where my feet were facing him, I was probably 25 to 30 inches, the end of my toe to the end of his. I mean, I was right there on him. He could have easily just reached out another few inches and could have held my shoulder. And when she turned the headlight on, they were on just a couple of seconds. Then the high beams come on, and then she started blowing the horn and flashing the lights, the high beam and low beam, real fast. And I could hear her screaming in the car, using profanity, but telling me to run.
Yeah.
And when she flashed the lights, he was still behind me doing the same thing, but when she blew the horn, he took off running, on the other side of the direction. He came out from my right, and he took off running to the left. And I got to the car, and I asked her, because I knew that Neanderthals don't exist. They're not here. You know, that was my mindset. Piglet, hold on, girl. I'm sorry about that.
You're fine.
We got a bunch of EMS vehicles passing, and they're barking at them. But my mindset was somehow that was a bear, a really large bear standing up, and I was just too close to it to see it clearly, if that makes any sense.
It does.
There ain't nobody out there, girl. But when I opened the door, she's just blabbing. And I asked her, because I was excited. I was really excited. Not in a good way, but just a lot of adrenaline. And I said, did you see the bear? And she cut me off and said, that wasn't no you-know-what bear. And I said, what'd you see? And she said, that was a man. That was the biggest effing man I ever saw. And that's when it sank in that it was a Neanderthal. It was not a bear. But, I mean, it was a flat face and almost looked like our face. And he had hair on his face, but it wasn't a lot. The forehead didn't. And right under the eyes, there wasn't much, and his nose didn't have much. I mean, it was just a few straggly strands. But it was like he had a wrap-around beard, but he did have hair on his face, but you could see the skin. It was mostly skin.
Did you see the color of the skin?
It was like have you seen in an ashtray when they flip the cigarette ashes and you see the people that mash them up in the powder with their cigarette?
Yeah.
It was almost that color, but it was a little darker. It had
a dark gray?
Black.
A dark gray-black color?
It was, yeah, sort of.
Yeah, I know what color you're talking about, because I know what color it is.
Oh, gee whiz. Y'all stop. At night, if a cricket thinks too loud, they start barking.
That's okay. You're fine.
But no, what makes it strange on that encounter, and I talked to Kim about it, because when we left, I started doubting myself. Did I really see that?
Of course.
Because it is possible for one person to hallucinate and then other people with them also hallucinate.
That was not a hallucination, though, Don.
No, I had verification. This happened in 2011. Last year, one of the guys that was on that hog eradication program with me, I hunt with him sometimes on the river. And that weekend, he wanted to come by. We were taking his boat, and he was driving. So on the way back home, we pulled up in the driveway, and we stopped. And I said, look, I'm going to ask you something, because there's not a week that goes by that doesn't come back. I've had more nightmares about that encounter
I can imagine.
than I have any dream I've ever had.
Yeah.
It's been, I always have them. And so I wanted to ask him, but I didn't want to get into details, because I know what it is now, but back then I didn't. But last year I knew what I seen, but I didn't want to mention the name to him about it, because he's almost 70 years old, and he's a farmer, no nonsense, no TV. I mean, he's very, very to the point and straightforward. And I said, you remember back when we was up at the farm off 73? And he said, yeah. I said, I want to tell you something, and I don't want you to laugh or, say something smart. I said, I'm going to be serious. And I told him, I said, I was coming from the big field back to the pocket. That was a small field. We had nicknames for the different areas.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I was walking back from that big field to the pocket, and something came out of that swamp, that thicket, onto the trail behind me. And he cut me off and said, you saw a Sasquatch. And I was not expecting that from him, because there were 5 or 6 of us that worked that field. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I saw. And I said, how did you know that? Because I haven't told anybody here that you would know how. And he said, let me tell you what happened to me and these other 2 guys that work with us out there on that, doing that same thing. They were at the far end. Now, these guys never told me about this, and I wish they would have, but they didn't. And all of these men are older than me, all of them. Well, they went to that big peanut field, the large one, and at the far end of it, the north end, 2 of them went down into the swamp. And this guy, my friend that brought me home this day that I was telling this to, he says, I was on the other side of the swamp on the island field. There's a field there that's long and narrow, and toward the far end, it has a perfect circle. It's considered Florida wetlands. So the farmer's not allowed to clear it. And it's only 100 foot wide, but it's a perfect circle. It's an island of cypress trees, and it's got swamp in the middle of it. Not a pond, just a wet area. Well, he was back there near that island. And the other 2 guys were pushing through that swamp down near them caves, and they were going to push the pigs out onto him, and then he would shoot. And they were doing a drive. Well, when they got down there, one of the guys, this thing come out, it started screaming at him from behind him. And he turned around, and he said it was about 50 foot from him. And it was yelling and screaming, and it had its hand on a little oak tree. And it was shaking the oak so hard that the limbs were snapping off of it, where the top was whipping back and forth.
Good Lord.
Well, this guy takes off running, and he's trying to stuff every bullet he can fit into his gun as he's running, and he made it out on to this other field on the other side, and this thing's behind him, chasing him. Well, the other guy was further south of him. They were in the same swamp, but they were probably an eighth of a mile apart. Well, he heard the thing roaring and yelling at him. Well, he thought it was 2 big wild hogs. The males, the boars, they'll fight out there, and they'll stand on their hind legs, and it is extremely violent, and it sounds evil. The sound mature wild hogs make when they're fighting, it is horrible to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, this guy thought that's what it was, so he started heading towards it. Well, it ended up, the first guy, the one that made it to the field, he ended up falling and turned around. He's got his gun trained in that direction. Well, it never came out on him, because the other man that was headed over toward it, I guess the Sasquatch seen him, or I don't know how he knew he was over there, but he turned and he took off and charged him. And they ran with everything they got, and they got out of that swamp, and they all ended up going back in the truck and sharing stories of what happened. Now, this year, this hunting season that just passed, I was hunting with this same guy. He's a good friend of mine, and we come back, and he brought it up. He said, you remember what we was talking about last year? About the, over there at this, I'm just trying to be careful not to mention this farmer's name, because he's well known.
Yeah.
But over at the peanut fields off 73. I said, yeah. he said, well, I'm going to tell you what happened after several months after this encounter that they experienced. The dim trail, that's where I had the encounter at. All right, the swamp, the direction that this thing took off running when she turned the headlights on and started blowing the horn. Well, this other guy, he's physically a big man, a tall guy, strong as an ox, and just, he's, I think he's 66, 67 years old. And I don't know any man in his 30s that would stand a chance against this fella. I mean, he's a walking mountain. Well, he went into that real thick area where this Sasquatch that I encountered, the direction that he ran, well, he went into that. And none of us have ever been into it. And he found a cave, and there's caves all over in the woods around this peanut field. And if you look up Mariana, Florida, it's known for the Mariana Caverns.
Yeah.
And it's all underground caves. Well, they're all over that area. Well, this guy, he went off in there and he found a cave, and he went down inside of it. And there were bones, what he thinks were deer and wild pig bones. And they were cleaned, very clean, like they had been bleached. But they were in neat little stacks on one wall, just a few feet inside the entrance. Well, he went down in it. He said it's tall. It's a very small opening when you first enter it. But he said it opens up, and the ceiling's like 12 foot high in there. But he come in at just a few yards into the entrance when he passed all the bones, and it opens up to the left. And he turned that spotlight on that's mounted on his scope, on his rifle.
Yeah.
Well, he shined it across. It's a lake. A body of water was underneath that huge peanut field. And the roof is all rock, and it's got these spikes of rock hanging all down. He said it's like something you'd see in a prehistoric movie. But shining his spotlight across that lake, he could not see the other side of it. And these are, the lights that they use are incredibly bright. I've got the one that I had is just the base model. It'll shine about 200 yards effectively. But theirs would shine all the way across that large field, 1,200 acres. It'll shine across the whole thing.
Good grief.
And he shined it across that lake and could not see the other side. And there's a walkway that goes around it, and he wanted to get my friend that was telling me this. This guy wanted him to go with him, and they were going to go down in there and explore. And my buddy told him, "No, I ain't going down in there. You know, after what we went through with that monster out there, I'm not going in it." But it ended up they had a meeting too, and everybody decided not to go back. But I left 3 very expensive hunting stands out there and 5 hog traps, several $1,000s worth of gear I left out there. And I told my buddy that I was talking to, I said, you know, whoever goes out there can have it. I ain't going back out there. But that encounter, it ruined me. The girl, the friend of mine that took me up there, she was talking about, she was more concerned with the size of it. She said, a man can't be that big, but I was looking at a man. And I asked her what she had seen, and she described him having his fist balled up and pointing toward me, slinging him at the ground and stomping his foot. And I never mentioned that to her.
Yeah.
I did tell her about the growling and that stink that I was smelling. And I told her about all that, but I didn't mention the foot stomping. But she said where she was at in the car, she said, I could see his entire upper body. The top of your head was the little ways, midways up his stomach area. She said, I could see the upper part of his stomach, his entire chest, shoulders, arms, everything from the upper part of his stomach over your head. And I'm guessing that's probably close to 10 feet. I'm 5'9", and for the top of my head to be a little ways past halfway up his stomach, that's a big guy.
Yeah, or bigger. But I think that's one of the reasons why some people, there are some people that argue about it, and they shouldn't really argue, because I believe there's a difference in some of these Sasquatch people. But that's why you have one group of people that think they're Gigantopithecus, which is ancient, and other people think that they're ape. Other people think that they're some kind of hybrid, because like your skunk ape doesn't look like the one up in, say, in Wisconsin or something.
Right.
There's quite a difference between the locations, but I'm just learning now that some of the people that have had encounters have encountered the same smell or color or facial features as people do, say up in Idaho, as they do in Florida. So now I'm beginning to think that they're not geographical. It's not skunk apes are just in Florida and Louisiana and Texas. I think they're everywhere. And I think they just call them skunk apes because the original ones just looked a lot alike. They had the long canines.
Oh, yeah.
They looked monkey looking. They spent a lot of time making a different type of noise. They smelled completely different. And I think every area, people call them different things. In the South, people call them boogers or swamp apes or, whatever name that they decide to call them. The way that they look is kind of an attribute to the name that they call them. But I'm finding out from people, like, I just got through talking to a lady that lives in Washington, and she said that the one that she came across was identical to the picture that's going around that looks like the Florida swamp ape, the skunk ape. And I said, and you're where? And she said, Washington. So that doesn't make any sense to me, because, like I said, I don't know what's happening, but it just seems to me like it doesn't have to be, they're not geographical anymore. You can run across any of these types anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's the size that is getting me, because the alpha, what I believe is the alpha that was on the property that I was at, he was at least a 10-footer. Okay, hey Mid, but the one that Robert saw, which I saw on his video, one of his videos that he did not release to the public, when him and I were trying to measure that thing, it was 13 feet. It was 13 feet, and then I've talked to people that said that they've seen them that were 15 feet tall. Can you imagine? No,
I can't.
I can't.
That was one of the highest fear factors for me in that encounter. You can hear someone describing,
yes,
excuse me, an animal or a creature or being, whatever they are. You can hear them describing the size, but I promise you, it does not register with you until you physically see it yourself.
Exactly.
And I've heard stories of people seeing them, and they're describing even 8 foot. It doesn't sound big when you hear other people seeing them 13, but 8 foot is a sheet of plywood standing on its end.
Yeah.
And the one that I saw, the width of him from outside of one arm to the outside of the other,
yep.
He took up the whole road. I couldn't even see the road past him.
Yep.
I couldn't see the field. He was so broad.
That's what I said, Don. The girth that just, it blows your mind. That's just impossible. I mean, You just can't
It
wrap your
is.
brain around the size of those things, you know? I mean, and if you get a chance to look at a leg muscle or an arm muscle or a chest muscle, you're like, your brain just goes on tilt because, oh my gosh, they could snap you with an eyelash. I mean, seriously, it's
Yes.
scary.
The the wrist on him was really close to my face. I mean, he was a little over a foot from me at times when he would do his fists.
Oh gosh,
When
Donnie.
he'd bring them back up, he'd sling them toward the ground. But when he'd bring them back up, he'd kind of swing toward me a little bit. And I could feel the wind coming off of him. But it was right there. And his wrist, from right there, it appeared to me that it was probably the thickness of his wrist was from the bottom of my chin to right there between your eyes on your nose.
Mm-hmm.
It was unimaginable. It was so thick. I don't think I've got large hands. I wear a 14 wedding band, and there's no way I could have wrapped my hands if I touched fingertip to thumbs to each other and fingertips to wrap around it. There's no way I could have wrapped around it. His wrists were so enormous.
Yeah,
And
I don't know
the
if
fingers, that they didn't look too big for him. His hands didn't, but the fingers were almost as big as a cell phone. Not the height if you're
The width.
holding it up looking at it,
right, the width.
but the narrower measurement, the
Yeah,
width.
yeah.
What is it? 2 inches, I guess.
Yeah,
His fingers looked almost that big around.
yeah.
And his fist was as big as my head. And you can't imagine when you see one up close, you understand just how easy it is for them to snap these trees off. You get it.
This is why I get so upset when people make fun of people that share their story. You just, you know, like Tex said last night on his live chat, you know, there's armchair researchers which some of them it's really good because they can pick out stuff that we can't see because we're just used to walking around. We might pick up this or pick up that, but they spend a lot of time, some of them do, really going through your videos and looking for details, and they pop up with stuff that we just don't even pay attention to. But
Oh, wow.
there are some people that I don't know what you could ever say that would convince them that these things are real. To them, everything is a joke. You know, the whole thing is a joke. And it's not funny.
I've
And
dealt with that
yeah,
a
and
few
once
times.
you've seen one, I mean, I got scrutinized by my entire family, and like I've told my chat, you know, my family on my chat here, you know, my family believed me because they know I won't lie to them. And that's the only reason they believe me, because I won't lie to them. And they know I don't lie. So, but they have a hard time with it. When the girls started coming up, I mean, that's one of the reasons why my grandson, you know, who's a big boy, you know, he won't come back. You know, he won't come back at all. Sarah has been scared so many times, and she's getting ready to turn 18 here pretty soon, and she's scared to death of them out here. She saw one last time she was here, which was just a couple days ago, and she just sat there outside on the front porch crying her eyes out because it was standing right there. And Lizzie and I have spent more time in the woods than anybody, and she knows that they're real. She's seen them many times, but yet when she tells her friends laugh at her, and she says, "Grandma, I just stopped talking about it. You know, I just stopped talking about it because you're not going to convince them." And here this little girl's, you know, 14 years old, but she's already gotten to the point where it doesn't even bother her anymore. What's the point of trying to explain something to somebody?
That's right.
You know, so
That's right. Well, you know, what you told me when you and I had a private conversation before the last chat, you had said it so perfectly. Once you encounter one of these and you see one up close, you can never unsee it.
no, never.
It is there.
It's
It is
permanent.
burnt
Yeah.
in your your
That's right.
memory. And I look back at the encounters I've had, and they all right now, they all seem like it was a dream. But several of them, I was not alone when it happened.
Right, but your brain's still going to do that, Don, because we just can't. You know, we're Bible believers. You know, we believe in the Lord. We believe in everything He created. You know, we have our own set. You know, we weren't
But
prepared for
it's
this.
one of the things I preach to a lot of people, because I've had a lot of dealings with the paranormal, and the paranormal, it's supernatural. Our Father, our Creator, is supernatural, and it messes me up because I do believe in a Creator, the Most High God. I do believe in Him. I do believe in His essence, the Holy Spirit. I believe in that. It's supernatural, and I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I'll face a bullet before I deny either one. But it's hard to believe in a physical being that is just as big as a God with a small g. You know, were these the gods that the native had worshipped at one point?
I don't know, but I think the words is what does it, Don, because we created these words. Okay, we're the ones that have decided what we think supernatural is, what we think cryptid is, what we think. We are the ones that decide what that is in our minds. So I can't say that I agree with a lot of the supernatural stuff, because in my opinion, the way I look at it, supernatural to me is demonic. But that doesn't mean all supernatural things are demonic. You get my point? To me, the Lord is supernatural, but I don't consider Him demonic. Anything that's here that is what people deem supernatural, to me, has to do with witches and warlocks and all that other kind of stuff. That's how I interpret that. So it's just a matter of terminology, you know? It's just a matter of terminology.
I'm sort of on the same page to an extent with you, and which we've had the conversation before. I have a family member that has seen spirits, and she says this another family member that's passed, and all this is all my family, and my belief is no, you didn't. I'm sure you've seen an entity that looked like this other family member of ours. I have no doubt you've seen it. I know you've seen it, but
exactly.
It's not.
Exactly.
That is not our family member, because the dead are not allowed to speak to the living. It's not their time.
Yeah.
And I do not believe if I see the spirit of my mother, that is not my mother. It may look like her and sound like her, but it's not. They're not allowed to speak to us yet.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Our interpretation, which is why there's so much of an argument in this subject, because people's private interpretation, personal interpretation of what words are, and you cannot and you will not ever get every single person to look at the same word the same way. We all have our own idea of what certain words mean or what they mean to us. So that's why it doesn't bother me. If I have people that don't believe in me, or don't believe what I say, that's fine by me, because I don't have the time to try to convince them. What happens to me, what's happened to you, what's happened to thousands of other people, cannot be denied. And if people want to still deny them or call you names because of it, that's their issue. And I hope and pray someday that they figure out the truth. If not, I hope and pray they never have to encounter one. Because let me tell you something. It has totally changed my life. Totally changed my life. I cannot sit outside with my husband, watching the dogs play and throwing the ball without thinking that a sassy or something else is going to come out of the woods and grab it. And I'm not talking about years ago when I would sit in the woods and wait for a deer to run by or some other kind of animal. Now I'm thinking about these 10-footers, it's just changed my world.
Yeah.
It's totally changed my world.
I know exactly where you're coming from, because we're having something come up to the fence right here beside the house again. and it was happening in the back and on the side. And if I'm remembering correctly, I may be wrong on this, but I think I'm right. A while back, Pappy had recommended put a game camera up because they don't like that infrared light. They know what it is, and they avoid it. And that's exactly what I did. In the back, I did not want them coming up on the back because these goats are family to us. We love them.
Mm-hmm.
And it would kill me if one of them was taken and ripped apart or eaten by one of these things, or anything for that matter. And I put the camera up back there. I mean, we were getting big, huge chunks of trees, big limbs, massive limbs. We'd hear them at night, be in bed, and you'd hear the thud where it hit the ground. And it sounds like it's right here at the house. And the next day I'd go out, and we'd go out and do our regular walk, check on all the goats, go hang out with them. And there'd be a 10-foot log, 8 or 10 inches in diameter, laying out in the middle of the back, and there's no pine tree there. Where'd this pine log come from?
Yep.
And this was before we got the tractor. So there wasn't a way to, there was no drag marks. So you could see a big divot about the size of a basketball where one end of it hit the ground and it bounced. We didn't hear the bounce. We just heard the one thud in here. But that happened 4 or 5 times. And so I believe it was Pappy that had told me to do a game camera, and I did. I put that one in the back. It's still back there.
Yep, I would do that too. I would like game cameras seem to help.
The batteries are dead on it, but it's still there. But we have no more problems out of that back at all. None.
Yep. Yep, that's why I was telling you to tell that other guy that. You know, game cameras seem to work, and if you flood the place just once in a while, flood that area, that gentleman that you were talking about, just flood it with lights. They can't stand it. They just can't stand it. And they will go away. I don't know if they'll stay away, but they will go away. Either that or they'll get worse. And a lot of people have had to move because of the anxiousness of it. But I would like to, if we can, if it's all right with you, I would like to ask the chat if anybody has any questions for Don. We are on 2 hours. So if anybody has any questions, anything you'd like to ask him personally, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer them for you.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That, how is it they can come to your home after you've seen them out in the woods? I don't know, Loretta. I think once they know that you know that they're there, that's the end of it. They follow you, you see them other places. I don't care where it's just for me, it doesn't matter where I go. I mean, I don't care if I'm staying at someone's house that's 5 miles out of town. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you know what she just asked, that's the exact thing that I asked last year. I had I don't know if you've seen the video where, I think I talked to you about it. We have a wild plum tree that's just out in the woods, and it's been there for a long time. And I went to try to dig up a baby off of it to bring it home, and I love the native plants. And when I was there, I didn't go there to film. I went there to dig me up a tree, and a limb hit the camper top on my truck, and it dented it. It dented the side of it pretty bad, and it broke one of the arms that hold the side window to where you could open and close the window. And I didn't find out about the arm being broken until after I got home. But anyhow, when that happened, it's only probably 2 miles, maybe, as the crow flies from our house to that exact spot. But you have to drive down all these different dirt roads, and to get back to the highway, you have to head east of us from that location to get back to the highway, and then turn and head back west to come to our house. And it was the same week that happened, 3 or 4 days later, the activity started here.
Wow.
And
I got go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to tell you, I got a couple questions.
Absolutely.
One wants to know, somebody wants to know if you have any cast. Did you cast any prints?
No, I did not. I never have. I wouldn't. I know the basics of it, but I don't know the material to use. And my addiction to it now, since that encounter, now that I'm finally overcome the fear to where I can go in the woods, is I want to catch one on video.
Well, have
I've
fun
got
with
to
that.
prove to myself what I've seen, and when you'll see them, and you get the camera out, and in an instant, you can't find where they went, but they don't run off.
Exactly.
They're still there somewhere, but you can't find them. And
Exactly. That's
I
what I'm
don't
saying.
understand it, but usually when that happens, they'll do these little chirping, whistling sounds.
Yeah, mine do here.
And you'll get that, and then directly behind me, and it doesn't matter where I'm standing, another one will happen directly behind me. And they're not real close, but they're not real far off either.
That's freaky, because I hate when that happens. That scares me every time, but they know how to do that.
Yeah.
All right, Filmer wants to know if you think there's a way for there to be an alliance between Sasquatch and humans.
I think we may have to, and I have a side of me, a very spiritual side, and I've had visions, and I don't get as many now. They started in 2012 when I got saved, and I've had a lot. But the last couple of years, I've had several visions of a land we're trying to move, and I'm waiting for me to get in my spirit when it's time for us to go. But I've had visions, and I even had a dream that this place, wherever it is we're going to end up, I've got to, and it's a treaty, not a written piece of paper, but in this vision and in the dream, I seen myself from the back, and in front of me were three of these giants.
Hey, now.
It was a very tall male, a tall female, and a shorter male. They were all taller than me. But we were not talking to one another, but we were somehow communicating like telepathy.
Yeah.
And it was a treaty for me to get permission to live on their land. And it was a good thing. But I keep seeing that. And I have such a fear of these things. I don't know if I could do it.
Are you afraid to go? Are you afraid to go out in the woods?
No, I go out now. I won't be out there at dark, but I do go.
Well, I don't know.
I have a good hunting partner now, and he's heard a lot, and I showed him some of this stuff to look for.
Yeah.
And he's a believer in them. He just hasn't seen one yet. And if he's with me, I'll stay till the sun goes down, but I don't want to be there long. I want to be out as quick as I can.
I don't know if any of you guys heard that, but something just got thrown at the window, so we have nothing above us, so if it hit the window, that means it was thrown at the window. So I was like, hey, now these guys don't, I haven't had that kind of interaction here yet, and that just started, so I'm going to have to yell. So if you hear me yell at them, just don't worry about it, because that's the way I am with these guys. And it's usually, I would think that it's usually a juvenile that'll start throwing stuff, but I don't, like up on the property, I went outside, I actually opened the door, went outside and said, no, don't be doing that, and then closed the door and then fell apart. I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? Yeah, they're here, Loretta. I've already had plenty of, like I said, Lizzie saw it, I saw it, Sarah's seen it. I've had plenty of the dogs. They're playing with the dogs. I know they are. Bella's hiding in her cage, but Tank is running all over the place. Because remember, Tank wasn't up with me on the property. Bella was. So Bella knows when they're around, and she'll hide. My interaction, Filmer, my interaction so far, every place I've gone has never been. I've never had any aggression. I did have, when I went to somebody else's property, they were definitely aggressive, and I could feel that almost hatred. You know, I've yet to feel that anywhere, but I could feel that almost hatred. And I just stayed back and let the guy that did the interviewing, I just stayed back and prayed. That's all I did was pray. I kept my mouth shut and I just prayed. And it just went away. You know, I didn't have that feeling anymore. And I don't know what happened after that because they, you know, he went back, I didn't. But do we have any more questions for Don? Let's let him go about his business tonight. And yeah, from little folk. Yeah, we're all little folk when it comes to this subject. Good grief. I don't understand how anybody
Absolutely.
can I don't understand how anybody can put themselves above somebody else. They didn't hate me. They hated the people that I think they hated the people on the property they were at. It had nothing to do with me. I just think you could just feel the hatred coming from them, or the anger,
Yeah.
really. But
You know, that encounter I had in Mariana, there's been dozens of times, not in that spot when the encounter happened, but on the back side of the big field, that there's a cave back there. It's not big enough for something even our size to get in it. It's a small cave. But the hill that it's on, we would cross that to go down to the creek. And when you get on the back side, you get an overwhelming sense of that feeling of hatred, of anger being directed at you. And it was only right there.
yeah.
But I kept feeling it, and I never said nothing about it. And one of the guys that was walking back there with me, we had shot a pig. He did. And I was going with him so we could drag it out because it was too big for one person. And when we come over that hill, he just stopped. And he said, you know, every time I cross in this area, I feel like I have angered the biggest man that's ever walked this planet. And now this was before any of us had any encounters out there. But he would feel anger. And I told him, I said, I feel the same thing every time I come over. Like somebody really angry.
Well, I think,
right there on me.
you know what? I think a lot of them don't like hunters because they're taking their food, you know. And maybe it's a clan that lives in an area where the hogs or the deer aren't as plentiful as someplace else. So, and yeah, Filmer, I always use the name of Jesus. Always. That's why I said I stayed back and prayed. But I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons. I don't know if they just hate people to hate people. I think there's really good reasons why they get mad at people. Either too noisy, or they're too close to the family, or, you know, they've stopped their hunting. I think there's a reason. I just don't think they're hateful just to be hateful. And that's just my opinion.
I think it's inherited. It's what
Yeah, that too.
their elders have taught them from what happened. You know, the day was here when they coincided with the natives.
Right.
They didn't live in the same little village, but they traded with one another. They sort of watched each other's backs. I mean, they had a relationship. And the Europeans came over, and they destroyed that.
Yeah.
And the trust between the natives and these forest giants was done out the window. And I think that has been passed down, that they have passed it down to their offspring. And it's just been a continuous thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I think
there's some good encounters people have had where they've been saved by them.
exactly. That's what I was just gonna say. But I've talked to a few people and listened to quite a few, you know, encounters where they've actually helped people. You know, and I don't know if that's someone. I don't know if that's someone who is telling the truth or telling a lie. But if you listen, there's so many of them. I mean, I've listened to so many. In the beginning, I used to listen to Wes Germer, you know, Sasquatch Chronicles, and that's when I first got started.
Yeah.
And I just used to listen to those. And in the beginning, I love how he's changed. Because in the beginning, if someone mentioned little people or DM or aliens, he would just roll his eyes and start laughing. But now, oh man, I'll tell you what, there's nothing that you... Yeah, that's true, Filmer. There's nothing that you can't tell him that he's not interested in now, because he realizes there's so much more to this, you know, cryptozoology than we ever anticipated.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot has to do with the times that we're in on the biblical aspect.
Yeah, as
Um,
in the veil has been torn.
yes, and
Yes.
a lot of this stuff is coming through the veil. I don't think that the big guys are. I think they've been here.
Yeah, me too.
But these other things,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
one of the
that,
reasons I'm so anti EVP machines and going out there and doing other stuff. You know, that's why I don't want anything to do with it. I'll just stay in here and pray. Thank you very much, and I'll pray for those people that want to go out and do that. But I want nothing to do with it.
well, you're showing, because they can see us whether they interact with us or not. That realm can see us, and when they see us using that equipment, asking these questions and trying to find where they're located, that's a beacon. Hey, this guy's wanting to socialize with us. We're going to follow him around a while, and now you have a problem.
Yeah.
That stuff follows you.
That's what I said. Filmer, what are you talking about? Are you talking about Sasquatch or other cryptids? Yeah, it's a great question. You know, if you're face to face with something, you know, are you talking about face to face with a Sasquatch like Don was and like I've been? Or are you talking about other cryptids? There's always a lag in the on either.
Oh, that's no problem.
Well, face to face with a Sasquatch, Don will tell you, and the same thing I'll tell you. It depends on the Sasquatch and it depends on you, because you can't say don't run, because some people's instinct is to run, and I wouldn't run from any predator, but your instinct is to run. As far as a Sasquatch is concerned, if I'm face to face with Sasquatch, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to put my hand in the air. I'm going to say, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. I'm going to back up as slowly as I can. I'm either going to get my head ripped off and killed, or they're going to walk away and leave me alone. As far as a DM or another entity, I have no clue. I think I'd probably have a heart attack, because it was enough of a shift in paradigm to see a Sasquatch, let alone something else. And I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm ready for that, to tell you the truth. Well, you know what I'm going to do, Don? What? I was going to say, I want you to, if you would, could you answer that?
The encounter the one in Mariana, well, all of them.
Yeah.
I can't say that one. When you see one of these things up close, there's something about their eyes you cannot. It's hard to look away from them.
It is.
You lock on into their eyes, and it's not a trance. Their eyes, they're not freaky. They're scary looking because they're so big, and there's life in them. When you look into them, you're looking into a living creature, but it's almost as though he knows everything about you the minute you make that eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that weird?
Frightening.
Isn't that weird, Don? It's and that is the exact truth. That is the exact truth. Once you look at them in the eyes and you're locked in eye to eye, it is the most unsettling feeling I've ever had in my life. But I didn't feel threatened. But are their eyes oversized like eye? What do you mean eye? But yeah, gosh, it's like the one, and I thought the one in the window was a baby, and that thing looked at me and I looked at it. I mean, we weren't 2 feet from each other, I mean, we were right there, eye to eye, literally. And gosh, it's horrifying, but I wasn't scared. And I wasn't scared, like I said, until after I went back and I found out how big, later on when I found out how big it was. But I felt like there was a peace there. I felt like there was a familiarity there. I didn't feel any fear. It was just strange. It was an awkward feeling.
Yeah, but when I made eye contact with them, with all of them, I get the feeling immediately that there's nowhere I could ever hide.
That's right.
From him.
That's right.
He knows everything about me. That just that couple of seconds that I looked at him in his eyes, it's like they read you. They know your thoughts. I mean, that's the feeling I got. They didn't they didn't speak to me through telepathy or anything
Me
like
either.
that. But
Me either.
the feeling I got, this thing knew everything about me. The second I looked into his eyes, he knew me.
That's why I'm saying they follow you home, because they know now that you know they exist. And the difference between looking at a child and looking at an adult, to tell you the truth, Filmer, I thought the one I was looking at was a baby. And actually, it was over 7.5 feet tall, so it had to be juvenile. But I looked in the eyes of the alpha at my window. I don't know. None of us are ever going to know that, Filmer, unless they talk to us. But when I looked in the eyes of the big one, it was all a questioning look. Okay, he just was questioning me. The look on his face was like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" You know, that's how I pick it. Remember I said in the beginning. Remember when we started talking, I said in the beginning what it is. It's our interpretation. This is just my interpretation of what I got out of the way he was looking at me. You know, I mean, I could be totally wrong. I mean, I don't know. He didn't say anything. I didn't have mental telepathy. You know, I have no idea what he was thinking. All I'm saying is, by the way he was looking at me, it just looked like he was questioning who I was or what I was. That was just what I got.
No, Dee, I want to, if I could add to that, we have, we have goats, we have dogs, we have a variety of animals, and we watch them. I study them. I'm fascinated with the life of all types, and one of the things that I've noticed with the dogs, they don't speak, and our oldest one, she is matriarch, and she'll look at one of them. They'll come up, and we think, oh, that the puppy's fixing to mess up, and she'll look at him. There's no growling, there's no snarling, there's no barking. She just looks at him, and the puppy stops. Her tail goes down, and she'll turn her head and walk back and look at her again, and they've got a communication. And I'm not saying it's telepathy, but
right.
I believe that it's spiritual, spirit to spirit. They communicate, and as a pack, how do coyotes hunt? How do wolves hunt without talking to one another? They've got a communication, and I think these things, they are a people, but they're also an animal. I think they've got both in their creation.
Right.
And
well,
they don't have to carry on a conversation to get the point across of what they're saying. There's claims they'll look at a dog that these people have these vicious pit bulls, and the bulldog will charge them, fixing to attack them, and the Sasquatch looks at him. He don't growl, he don't yell, he looks at him, and the bulldog stops dead in his tracks, and he just puts his head down and turns and walks away. And the pit bulls, they are the hardest, most driven animal, and if they get their mindset to attack something, God forbid it not be human, because they don't stop. Yeah. They are driven for whatever they desire. They get on it and they make it happen.
Well, I have pit bulls, so I know.
Yeah, well, I've had them most of my life. I've only got one right now, but with the point of how they communicate to one another, and there's no facial expression, but there is an exchange going off. And if you sit back and watch them, they're talking, but there's no sound.
Yeah,
there's
well,
no
I can hear them talking to each other out there, and I can hear them banging on trees and stuff like that, or making click noises.
Yeah,
but I don't think.
I
but
get that mumbling.
Right, me too. But I cannot. I'm like Filmer. I think I'll be done if I ever hear something talk in my head besides the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, besides the Holy Spirit. If it's not the Holy Spirit talking, which I do rebuke anything like that. If I happen to not understand what's going on in my brain, I'll automatically give it to the Lord because I don't want anything else up there except for my Lord. So if these
That's
things
right.
do communicate telepathically, which a lot of people say they do, I just want nothing to do with it. Okay. I mean, that's just the way it is. If they do, they're not going to do it to me because I'm just not going to hear it. I want to hear verbal. And I've heard them mumbling out here. I've heard them whistle out here. I've heard them, making noises. I've even heard them actually say English before, but that's it. They've mimicked something else, but I'm not
Yes.
into, I'm sorry, but, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are into it, but I am not into the telepathic part of, I don't know, Filmer. I have no idea. I don't think so, but I'm not into the telepathy part of it. I'm just not interested. But hey,
Yeah, I
Denny,
haven't experienced nothing like that.
hold on a second,
I,
Don. Denny, I need your plug-in because I'm gonna lose him. It's your phone's dying. I got 20% left on the phone. Hold on a second, guys. I gotta get his plug-in.
okay.
You gotta get the charger from the wall, honey. My charger from the wall. Forget that one. Get my charger out of the bedroom from the wall. And you gotta plug it into this plug-in down here. I don't think it's gonna reach. I might end up having to lose you anyway if he can't get the plug-in. Because there's no plug-in up here. No, not that one. Get the plug-in out of the room. Please. Anyways. Ooh, did you hear that nice little bump out there? Yeah.
Is that on your end?
Yep, that was on my end. That was, sounded like something hit one of the barns, one of the... Here, baby.
It came through on my earpiece, but only on the right side. I didn't hear it in the left side.
You
That's
have
weird.
stereo. Hold on, let me plug you in. Hold on a second. I don't want to lose you. There you go. You're plugged in now. Woohoo. Okay, we're all good.
All right, that made a difference in sound, too.
It did? Yeah, because it was getting ready to die. But it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to jump off and jump onto the chat and join the chat here. Hey, Rod. If you want to jump off and join the chat, that's fine. If you want to keep talking this way, you're fine. You're welcome to keep doing that. It's totally up to you.
Oh, yeah, I'll stay with you a little while longer.
Okay.
We got tomorrow is going to be our first day back at church since the cooties.
The bananas, you mean?
Come in early to be a doorman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's on the increase, Filmer.
I've got an encounter that a guy has shared with me. I didn't get all the details.
Uh-huh.
And I asked him if he would meet with me to where I could record the encounter in his own words or video him. And he's open to do both, any and all the above, but he wants to write it down, think it through where he gets all the details right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a bad encounter, and it wasn't a good encounter. They got run off, but nothing happened bad. And
sorry,
I'll give you just a quick rundown. They went camping on a river, fairly close to me, south of Marianna, actually. And where they were at, the river was only about 75 or 100 feet wide, and it's not too deep, 4 or 5 foot. And they had a little old campfire. They were about 100, 150 feet from the water's edge, and a real flat and level area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a mix of clay and sand. There's some hard spots and soft spots. Well, they heard something hit the water on the other side of the river. And they looked over there, and they could see white from whatever it was coming across the river toward them, and it was moving. He said this thing was moving fast. Well, it come up over the bank through the brush right there. Once you get out of the river, there's a roll, and I'm not sure what the roll. He didn't explain the the features of the area. I think they may have been on a hill, but he said it come over this roll, and there's bushes or shrubs on it, and it's plowing through them. And then they seen the head and the shoulders as it starts coming over this little ledge where they were on this flat area. Well, they jumped up and took off running the opposite direction, and they ran and got in the truck, and they left. Well, they come back, and he showed me the picture. He took a couple of pictures, and he said these divots were in the ground all around the fire and all around our tent. And he took a couple of pictures. He was standing next to the picture, or next to the divot. And he showed it to me, and it was not a divot, it was a footprint. And I told him, I said, that's a footprint. And I zoomed in on it for him, and I said, look, there's the 5 toes. You can see the entire foot, very clear. And he said he couldn't see it. It was just dents in the ground. But there were 2 tents, and both tents, they had the zipper door open on it. And in one of the tents, they had an air mattress, and the 2 young men that were sleeping in that tent shared the air mattress. Well, they had a 30-06 rifle loaded, was laying on the air mattress. You wouldn't even have had to climb in the tent to grab it. He said you could squat down in front of it and just reach in, and you would have had your hand on it. And when they come back, everything was still there. But the fire looked like that somebody just kicked the logs everywhere. All the burnt logs were scattered. It was just trampled, but nothing was taken. They had a cooler for drinks and sandwiches. Nothing was taken.
Wow.
But he's supposed to let me record him, or I don't know how he wants to do it. He's open for anything. But he wants to write it all down. He said there's so much happened that night before this thing came across the river Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fascinating, but he wants to get all the details down because he said there's a lot of little things. They were seeing lights in the trees on the other side of the river. And he said we thought they were flashlights, but they were green. And then they would come out of the trees kind of in the open. And he said they were just round balloons of light.
Oh, I hate That's another topic right there, you know. I mean, when I said, hello, Sir D, how are you? Welcome. I finally got my internet going. I used to just kind of roll my eyes when it came to orbs, you know, because in the beginning, people that talked about orbs were talking about, you know, aliens and stuff like that. And I guess it just wasn't my cup of tea, you know. It's just not something I was interested in.
I don't know if I don't quite get the orb thing. I'm not sure I understand what it is, but he didn't say orbs. He just said it was like balls.
That's orbs. Those are orbs. I've actually seen one. Since then, I've actually seen one. So,
oh, wow.
So, like I said, in the beginning, I just kind of blew it off. But, you know, I had my first when I was in Honabi, you know, and I was there for, it was the conference. And, hello, Cosmic. Anyway, when the gentleman that was walking with us, because it was Lizzie and I, and these 2 gentlemen and a dog, and we were walking towards it, and I said, what's up there on the hill? Is that a road? And he said, he goes, yeah, there's a road up there. I said, is that an ATV? Because it doesn't look, you know, I said, look at those lights. And then all of a sudden it was one light, you know. So he goes, well, I don't know what that is, because there's no way. There's the road isn't there. It's on the other side. And I said, well, what the heck is that? And as soon as we said that, that thing just came closer and closer and closer. And when we walked, and then when it got to the tree line, which was probably about 100 yards from us, as we walked to the tree line, it backed up. And then when we backed up, he told me to do this. He goes, now just back off. We backed off, and that thing came forward. And the next thing you know, he's praying, and I'm like, what the heck is this? I mean, it just blew me away. And so, like I said, some of this stuff is just out of my realm of knowledge. I just have absolutely no idea what some of this stuff is. So I just go back to my biblical, knowledge, and I just start praying because I have no idea what to do with it. I mean, I honestly don't. I can't sit here and say, well, I know what orbs are. I think I know what orbs are. They may be this, they may be that. They may be associated with Sasquatch. They may not be. I have no clue. So I'll just leave it in the Lord's hands, and whatever he wants to show me, he wants to show me.
Yeah, I don't know. He was under the impression whatever these balls were that they scared this thing or run it out of the woods.
Really?
'Cause when those little lights started, he said they were about the size of a grapefruit, and there was a few of them. But he said they were coming in and out of the trees, but they could hear the limbs being broken, and they thought it was those lights breaking them.
Oh my goodness!
And then they realized the breaking was going away from the lights, but they were kind of they weren't chasing it real fast, but they were moving toward it. And then it broke out and jumped in the water and came across toward them. But it went up into their campsite and trashed their campfire, but it didn't touch anything else.
Wow. I don't know
but
why.
He's supposed to take me to that area because it's not far from here. I just want to go and look and see if we can get any type of evidence or anything. The lights don't. I mean, it's fascinating, but I'm more into, I want to see one of the big guys. I just want him to give me a chance to get him on video just a second or two.
You and everybody else.
when I doubt myself, I could open it up and press play and keep that reminder going.
Well, you know what? Your encounter was enough. I know that it still bugs you that way, but I do the same thing, Don. I can be laying in bed and think about, just say we've already had this conversation and, I've closed out the night chat and I go ahead and I lay down, and I always watch out the window at night. I go to bed anywhere between 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Usually when the sun's about coming up is when I fall asleep if there's activity outside. And I could be laying there and all of a sudden I will question every single solitary encounter or noise that I've heard over these past 5 years. I'll go over all of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just...
I do it constantly.
It's just, someone can ask me a question that happened 4 years ago and it's like it happened 5 minutes ago. I can't get it out of my head. That's why I'm saying it kind of slays me when people say, I gotta see one, I gotta see one, I gotta see one. Man, if you're ready for your whole lifestyle to change, okay, but
it consumes you.
It consumes you. I can't get this stuff out of my head, and I think that's one of the reasons. Well, it's a blessing anyway. I've always spent a lot of time during the day praying, and if I get something on my heart, like the Lord tells me to pray for a specific person, I'll just stop what I'm doing and I'll just start talking to the Lord and I'll just start praying. Well, but on top of that, this stuff happens and I get confused. I'm saying, Lord, if you created them, they have to be your creation, which means, I shouldn't fear them because you created them. But I fear grizzly bears, I think...
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's so hard to describe the feelings that you get when it comes to these things, because I have never been in this position in my life, My background, I've known fear my life. I've known fear my entire life. I've looked at death's door many times. So, but this is
not the same.
It's not the same.
The fear that comes from these things.
And I even had anxiety for a lot of years. This is nothing like anything I've ever been through. I can't associate this with any other feeling. And so there's...
Absolutely right.
It's very hard for me to sit down with somebody that really wants to know, because they think that people have had encounters have answers, but we don't have answers. We're just as clueless And that's the hard part. We're still just as clueless, but with the memory, with the visualization
That's right.
or the audible memory. It just won't go away. No matter what you do to try to even, squash it a little bit, it just doesn't go away. If I see
It
eye
doesn't.
shine, if I see
One
eye
of the
shine,
things, I'm sorry.
if I see eye shine out there, I don't automatically think it's Sasquatch. I live in the woods. I don't think every single eye shine or noise is a Sasquatch. Okay, but
That's right.
but if I see the shape of those eyes, I know exactly which one is a Sasquatch. And then here we go all over again. Some things are just undeniable.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Email me, Loretta. We can talk. But I really wish this community would be more of a community because so many people have questions, and none of us have answers. We all have our theories, we have our experiences, we have our beliefs, and they can match to a degree. But how you handle your fear or your elation is not how I handle my fear or my elation. They could be totally different. And so what affects you one way might affect me someplace different. No, Martha, mine's changed, sweetie. Sorry, hold on a minute, Don. Martha, my email address has changed since I moved. It's emtd04@yahoo.com. When I moved, they got rid of Cox, and I couldn't switch my email. I lost all that email. So it's
Oh, wow.
EMT, just like an EMT, DEE04@yahoo.com. And you're welcome to email me anytime. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine.
But it's crazy. Thank you, Martha.
I was gonna tell you, and with all the experiences that I've had with these things, and I don't know how long I've been doing it. I think I just started it a couple of years ago. But I realized what I was doing last year, and it was, I think it was on one of the videos that I posted on the channel. I don't remember. I have to go back and check. But when the activity would start, usually it'll come from one of the sides, sort of in front of you, but it's usually off at an angle. It's never directly in front of you. And then it'll start on the other side. And then if you stay calm and keep moving the direction you originally were planned, or at least in my case, then I start hearing stuff all around me. And then I'll hear the mumbling, then the whistling, and then the little, it's just a tapping sound, but you'll hear it. And
I call it
like
clicks.
It goes back and forth. It's strange. But I get nervous when they're all around me. I get real nervous.
Well, yeah.
When I get scared. And I'll start talking out loud. And I think my intention originally when I started doing it, and I don't remember when I started, but the last time when I noticed I was doing it, I felt that my intention was I'm talking to an imaginary friend, but I'm trying to trick these things to where they think I've got another partner out there with me, that I'm not alone. And so I'll talk loud like I'm talking to a friend that's 50 yards away from me. And I'll look in one general direction, and I'll say, hey, I'm over here, and I'll wave my arm, and I'll act like I'm talking to somebody.
They probably think you're crazy.
Well, they react to it.
Yeah, I know
and
they
when
do.
When they start getting around me, like circling me and doing the clicking and all them sounds, then I'll pick the direction I want to go to get away from it. And that's the direction. I'll pretend like I'm talking to a friend that's kind of off at a distance in that direction. And I'll answer questions like he's asking me, are you coming this direction? But it's a one-sided conversation because I'm the only one there. But in my mind, they think that I'm with somebody else, and it works. They do sort of back off. They'll quiet down, and that's when the movement will start. You'll hear them like they're repositioning, and I don't know if they're trying to get out of the way so the other person doesn't see them, even though there's nobody really there, or if they're just doing it. I don't know. I don't know why they do it, but it works, and it opens me a path up to go, which normally I'll want to start heading back toward the car, and so I'll act like I'm talking to a friend that's that direction. And then the sounds, they'll kind of reposition, and then I'll only get them from behind me. And I'll stand forward like I'm going to meet him, and I'll keep talking out loud. And I get scared. And when the fear gets really intense, that's when I start doing that. And it helps.
Do you think that
it's a mental thing for me, but it helps.
Do you think that you're safer in a group of 10, Filmer asked, as opposed?
Oh yes, by far.
And why do you think that is?
Because they, when we hunt out there, and I have encounters, whether it's just sound, audible encounters, or if I see movement. But that happens when I'm alone every time.
Mm-hmm.
And my new hunting partner, a wonderful man, good man, he believes, but he hasn't had an encounter yet. But he's been with me, and we've had the footsteps, we've had just all the different sounds, the clicking sounds, the knocking on the trees, the mumbling. He's heard it all, but he hasn't got to see one. And we took his father and his father's friend out there, so there were 4 of us, and it was dead silent. We didn't experience nothing.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think the reason, if there's 4, 5, 6 people out there, they might stay in the background and watch. But if they want you gone, all it takes is one Sasquatch to get rid of 10 people. They can definitely make you leave. I don't care how many people are out there. So there's where things change for me, because it doesn't seem to matter as far as the intent, if the intent is bad. Mr. Doss, I call him Sir Doss, but D Doss was, I don't know if you're still in the chat room, D, but him and I talked about this a long time ago. And if you're singled out in the forest and they decide they either are going to make contact with you or they're going to scare you out, I don't care if, you're going to get, I think you probably have the same chance individually, if they are aggressive, that you do with 10 people. If they want you gone, I don't care how many people are there. They're gonna get rid of you. But it also depends on if everybody's armed. If you get a bunch of people out there with guns and they're going hunting for them, I think they just disappear. They don't want to mess with, I think they're smart enough to know. And I think they'll just disappear. They'll just take off, or they can stand behind a tree and you can walk right by them. There's a lot of times where people have said that they, you can see it in a film, when they're taking pictures, that there's a Sasquatch standing right there and people walk right by them and never even noticed them before. And I know I've done that myself with my grandkids. I can stand perfectly still and they walk right by me, never even see me. So imagine these things are used to the woods. And I wouldn't doubt it at all, but I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any difference if you have 10 people or if you have 3 people or if you have 1 person. If they want you gone, you're gone.
But if you feel like when I go out there, I'm by myself almost every time if I'm hiking.
Yeah.
And when I get really scared, I will try to get the live stream started. That's why if you look on my channel, a lot of the live streams aren't really titled. They just started.
Yeah.
And I would be out there trying to get some type of evidence or footage, and the activity would get so intense that it would really have me on edge, very frightened.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'd be a mile from the truck, and I don't move fast anyway. Even if I wanted to, I'm not capable of it.
Yeah.
And I'll try to get an area where I can get a good enough signal, and I'll just go live because I feel like I have people with me, even though they're not in the physical. Just for my own self-preservation, I feel like I have friends around me.
That fear factor is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It's debilitating sometimes. You know, I mean, I was never afraid of the dark. Never. I've never been afraid of the dark. You know, I could be the one at the bottom of a closet with everybody piled on top. I just never had that kind of fear, and I can walk outside. Oops. Call failed. Well, we lost him. That's not too bad. It's been over 2 hours, so sorry guys, but he kind of disappeared. Dee, are you still here or did you leave already? There you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad.
Was.
We made it.
Yeah, that may be a sign.
Yeah. Do you think Squatches are like chimpanzees in terms of being prone to sudden mood shifts? Sorry. Yes, absolutely. Some of them,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm with you on that, 100%.
They can go from just walking around being fine to all of a sudden being very hostile, throwing things, snapping branches, having a hissy fit. Yeah. So, yeah, I believe they do. That's why, in a way, when I was watching, I forgot what his name is, I'm sorry, but the guy that does the savant, theory. What is his name? Gosh. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him.
Well, the thing is, yeah, they can be peaceful and then throw a temper tantrum. Absolutely, they can. Well, they have here, so I don't know about all of them. Christopher Noel, thank you very much.
Yeah, here too.
And I've I listened to him when he made that comment, and I thought, because I've been telling people since I started this, that they remind me, I don't think they ever get past a teenage mentality, even the old ones, because they can be jokesters and they can get angry really quick. They can throw a ball, say you have a ball out in the woods and they can throw it. And then you put that ball back out there the next day and then they'll throw it. And you put that ball back out there the next day and then they'll throw it again. But if you throw that ball, they get mad. I mean, really mad. So I can't, I don't think they ever get past teenage mentality because that's what they remind me of, teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't think so, Felmer. He says they're a way to predict what may anger them. I have no clue unless, like here, I just moved here. The ones on the property, yeah, I could tell you what angered them that I never repeated. Like I didn't make that click noise anymore because that sent a mama flying. I don't throw anything back in the woods because that made them mad. I don't touch any of their structures. I leave their structures be. I don't ever mess with them because the one time I did, they destroyed it. So there's certain things that this clan in that area that I was in, now I know what I did to anger them specifically, but if they got angry and I didn't do anything, I couldn't tell you what I did. I mean, I might have just accidentally beeped the horn or moved something I shouldn't have moved. I have no clue. But here in this area here, I have no idea what these guys are like, so I mean, I just got here and I don't want to make them mad. I'm hoping.
Dee, I haven't, that's more of a theory about when they build these little things out of tree limbs and vines, they'll stay standing. But if you go in there and move a couple of sticks where you can see under it, if you touch it, physically touch it, they'll disassemble it. They'll smash it.
Yeah.
Or they'll just pull it apart. And,
yeah.
The first time I witnessed that was in that area that I do most of my recordings at. And what came to mind was a study. I was studying to try to be a better deer hunter when I was, I think I was around 18 or 19 years old. And I was studying the scent factor. And when the scientists were taking the odor of the deer, the pig, all the different wildlife, all the living creatures on the planet, they have a system set up like a sniffer, this computer, and it'll smell, they'll run it over these animals, and it'll give them an intensity level of stink, basically. It measures how much they stink. And the skunk, the gland of a skunk, when they secrete that stink, whatever that mess is that ruins your skin and clothes if it gets on you, as horrible as that smells, the odor of a human was like 20 times worse. We are the nastiest smelling living creature on the planet.
Because we have so many different smells. Because we have different smells on us. There's different chemicals on us. That's why we smell so bad.
Well, that's what that study was showing. It's the human body, but we can't smell ourselves unless we add a foreign fragrance to
right.
it. Then we smell it.
Right.
But that's why the game can smell us. The deer can smell us from 100 yards away. You can't get away from a bloodhound. He'll find you because you can't. The smell, it lingers and it clings to porous surfaces like leaves and tree bark.
Yeah, your skin cells. You lose skin cells, and those things have scents on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I thought of the first little teepee thing I found. It was small. It was like waist high. And it was so loaded with sticks, you couldn't see under it.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved 2 little sticks about as big around as a quarter on one side to see what was under it. If they had, an animal had died and somebody had built that. I didn't know what it was. And I moved and there was nothing under it, and I set them right back the way they were. And 2 or 3 days later, when I went back in that area, it was just obliterated, like somebody slammed a watermelon on top of it.
That's why I said I don't touch their stuff. And yeah, I did cut down some trees, but first of all, I told them I apologized, and first of all, I asked them permission, but second, I apologized, and I told them I was going to replace the trees. But I don't touch, and I literally, if I see anything that even reminds me of a structure or of a glyph, I don't touch it. Now they did put a stick with a pine cone on I have a little stump outside that I do my chopping my wood on, and my husband noticed it and said, was that there before? And I said, yeah, that was there before. And that was the one that was in my truck. And I looked again, and it wasn't the one that I put in my truck. It was a completely different one. So I said, thank you. I said, thank you. And I put it inside my truck. But so far, like I said, and we've cut paths through the back with the brush hog. We've gone back there. I've cut down a few saplings so we can get through, so I don't get inundated with ticks. And we are going to, hopefully, Lord willing, we are going to build back there where the cabin, if you guys saw when it was daylight, there's a little trail back here, a little path that goes off to the right. Well, back in through there is where we planned on building a cabin. And I told them that. What are you laughing at? Who's here? Anyways, I keep telling them the things that I'm going to do. And then I keep asking permission. Now, I don't know if I'm talking to the air. I don't even know if they're around. You know what I'm saying? But I still do it. I still do it because there's a respect level there. And I don't want to have a problem because we can't move. We're stuck here.
That's right.
This is the end of this is where we live.
Just like you said last week, that's their living room.
Yep. But if my friend's correct, this is the Honaby clan. If it's the Honaby clan, then they already know who I am because I've spent the last four years going there and spending time out in the woods with them. So They're
Oh, well,
familiar. They
good
don't
deal.
know me. They're familiar with me. You know, I've been out there one-on-one. So, you know, if that's the same clan, which it's not very far from where I'm at to Honubby. So, if it is the same clan, then I feel okay. But I'm never going to take that for granted. I'm never going to say I feel safe in the woods. I'm never going to say, oh, they're never going to bother me here. I will not ever take that for granted.
That's right.
You have to be
That's
careful no matter where you're at, what you're doing at all times. And that kind of messes up my faith level because I'm believing in the Lord so much, but I feel like I take him for granted if I believe him that much, you know?
oh yeah, yeah. You're right.
It's a hard part.
But I think they know. You know, when you're showing respect and you're not, whether they understand it. So I think they know. They know our intent, just like a dog does. You know,
Yeah.
someone comes in and your dog, you know, starts growling or rumbling at them where they normally don't do that. You know, don't trust that person. There's something about them, and I think they're the same.
Yeah,
You know,
my dog did that once. Bella is the sweetest pit mix that you can ever imagine. She is just the sweetest dog ever. And she loves everybody. But one of my grandson's friends came to the door and she wouldn't even let him in. She doesn't growl. She barks when people are come up on the property at night. You know, not here, but when we lived in the house in Arkansas. And
oh
she
yeah,
would bark when someone would pull in the driveway or someone walked by with their dog. She would start barking. Always stop throwing things. Hey, look at that. They throw something and he starts barking. They're out back here. You guys heard that hit the window, right?
I heard something.
Yeah,
It sounded like a double thump.
yeah, it was a pebble hit the window. But anyway, but here, I don't know. Here, like I said, it's new to me. You know, I haven't been here long enough, and I've already had some interactions with them. But Bella, because she's had interactions with the big guys, she will go in her cage and stay there. And Tank, because he didn't, I said this, I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But Tank will go out there and run all over the place. And I mean, they run him ragged. He comes in, and by morning, that dog is so tired that he'll just lay on the ground and sleep all day because last night or the night before, I think it was the night before, he would not leave my porch, I mean, my steps. He doesn't sleep there. He sleeps in his cage. And he was sitting
Oh,
on
wow.
on my steps all night long. He was protecting us. And I don't know what against, you know, but he was just growling and barking and growling and barking. And I was wondering what, you know, because we have bear out here and we have big cats out here and we have coyotes and everything else. But like I said, I won't take any of that for granted. You know, I'll get to learn these guys and hopefully, you know, I don't have any aggressive stuff going on, but I'm like you. I still have that, you know, I just can't get them out of my head. I just can't.
Yeah, it's hard. It's kind of
Quiet, Tony.
burned in.
Yeah, it is. It's burned into your brain. Try to explain that to
Yeah.
somebody. They don't get it.
No, if they stay in the woods long enough, they will certainly understand one day.
Yeah. Martha was talking about when we went to Fouke, and when we went to Fouke, it was awesome because they're basically so used to people there that I don't think anybody will have a real bad encounter. Although I've heard people having bad encounters there, but Fouke is a great place to go if you want some place that they're not aggressive, you know, and you
Oh,
want
yeah.
if you want interactions without any aggression. Fouke, Arkansas is a great place to go, and I suggest it for anybody that's new that wants an experience but doesn't want a scary one. That's where you should go. It's
Wow.
there are people since that Fouke monster thing. People have been shadowing those woods for years.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about Fouke Monster. I
Yeah.
remembered it now. They had a show on not too long ago about that.
Yeah, we had a meet and greet last year there, and it was great. We had a lot of fun. Had a lot of activity there too, and then people showed up because it was a holiday weekend. Then people started showing up, and then all the activity stopped. We couldn't trust anything we heard because we didn't know if it was a person or not. So we just, that was it. Martha says I was afraid.
Leave it to the people.
Martha says I was afraid before I got there, but then after I wasn't.
That's awesome. That's that area where I do most of my filming at. I don't think anything bad ever happened over there, but I don't never let my guard down.
Yeah, me either.
I'm always on edge. If they're not there when I get there, I mean, it just feels like being in a beautiful part of the forest. But the minute they start coming in, whether they make a sound or not, they're there.
Well, do you ever feel like you're alone then when you know they're not there?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Several times, but
isn't that weird?
But it is, and that that one part of that area where I had to run in with the game warden and the two guys in the black uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of times I go in there and it's just there's nothing. I mean, it's just like stepping out in my front yard. There's no bad feelings, no nothing.
Yeah, we got to be real careful about how much we disclose because those guys are real. I'll tell you that. They messed with my place many a times. They have, they put a little black box up there. They started monitoring my phone calls. They started monitoring my computers now take snapshots of almost everything I get into. So, and even I have a VPN, it doesn't seem to matter. They just take snapshots and you can actually see it on my computer. They take a screenshot.
Oh, wow.
So it hasn't gone away, but I tried. I have, now I have six videos that I've been trying to upload now for almost a week and they won't upload. So the only thing for me to do is instead of trying to, I think I'll try to upload those maybe to my Facebook channel. But I think what I'm going to do is from now on, when I want to do that, I'll just go outside and go live until it dies. I think that's the best thing for me to do because otherwise I can't upload the videos. For some reason won't let me.
I'm having. The live works immediately. And it hasn't been like that. This started just a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Well, it started actually when you met the guys there.
Yep, it was right. It was very close to that time frame.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When they get involved, all your stuff starts not working properly. And I don't care if you're just doing your normal. I don't care if you're doing homework for school. It doesn't matter. They've just inundated my internet. So. I don't really care. And, I know people want to know who they are or what they're doing. We don't know. We don't know what branch of the military, if any, they are. We don't know what they want, except for if you have something that you've posted that clearly shows a Sasquatch, just prepare yourself because they will come down on you one way or another. And if they can't mess with your computer, they'll mess with your bank account. If they can't mess with your bank account, they'll mess with your family. But trust me, they'll find their way in, and as long as we keep doing what we're doing, they can't stop all of us. They can't stop all of us, and that's why I say more people should do it. There's too many people out there that know. They're knowers.
Yes.
And
well, I'm going to go back to that area up there soon as they open it, and. I'll probably end up having to go live, but I want to show the people that have been following me and seeing the videos I've done up there. I want to show them what that area looks like now because they burned all that off.
Yeah, I think there's someone here from your channel. I don't remember the name. It's WYO something, YO Crow or something like that. Wanted to know about your encounter with the Men in Black. But, and I think they're from your channel because I've never seen them before. But
yeah, we'll probably have to do that on another one.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get to bed here shortly. We got to be up early.
It's almost 11:30.
Yeah, we'll definitely, if you want to do it again soon, then we can I'll explain what happened during that, because that was it was so out of place and bizarre.
Okay. Well, we'll do a part 3, you know. We can wait till next weekend and do a part 3.
Oh yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And anybody else have any more questions for Don before we go? Yeah, Falk was awesome, wasn't it, Martha? Wait till you come
One of
here,
these days
sweetie.
I'll be up that direction. That's where we're aiming for, is the Arkansas area.
Really? Well, I left Arkansas for a good reason. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I like Oklahoma, although the rules are different here too. Every place has, the grass is no greener anyplace else, but the city I lived in, I wouldn't go back. Anyway,
Yeah, we're wanting to go up to the north end, up there close to Missouri.
oh, yeah. No, not me. More southern is where I want to go. Stay away from that stuff. Anyways, nobody has any question. Yeah, it's Standing Goats Rescue, like in the title, Cosmic. If someone wants to post his channel, thank you very much. But I'll go ahead and say good night.
Thank you
I think
for having me on again.
Oh, you're welcome. I can't wait for the next one too. Yeah, I think they're government agents, Filmer. I don't think that they're other researchers. But anyways, I'll go ahead and end this, and then I'll come back online in a little bit, or probably right away, because I know we got activity tonight. So I'll let Don say goodnight to everybody, and we'll see him back in a week to finish his story. And thank you very much, Don. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you guys for joining us and taking part in it.
Okay, well, let's have, can we have prayer before you go?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's have prayer, guys. Ready? Father in heaven, we come before you as your family, as your children. And Lord, you said where 2 or more gathered, there you are in the midst of them, asking anything, and that you will do it. So we are asking, and we are in agreement tonight that we all are protected, that we have a hedge of protection around us, around our families, around our property, around our animals that we consider family also. And I'm asking for a special prayer tonight for Don and his family and his animals, that whatever is out there irritating the animals, that they're gone, that you protect him, that you give him strength, that you give him the wisdom needed to continue to do the things that he's doing. And I ask you to bless him, bless his family abundantly for those things that he's committed his life to. And for everyone else, Father, I pray that whether their need is spiritual, physical, financial, or emotional, that you meet their needs, Father. In Jesus' name I pray. And everybody said, Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, you have a great night,
Thank you, Dee.
Don, and I will see you later.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good night. We love each and every one of you. And until next time, you guys be safe.
All right, good night.
Yes, ma'am. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeehaw! That was awesome. Okay, I'm going to end this one since it says Don, you know, and I'll start up another one because we have activity, okay? All right, love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Or wait a minute, I can go live tomorrow. You guys want me to wait till tomorrow? I'm so bad. Love ya. God bless you. Bye.